talk about. We'll just keep talking. We'll just keep talking. Just keep talking. Talking. For so long. Oh, we're babbling on.
You've got mail.
Wow.
Oh shit, I just spoiled it.
That sounded so good.
God, you're sweet. Hey, you.
Okay.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi.
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 You guys.
Hi.
Good morning, Babbling On community.
Good morning.
I have a huge thing to introduce you to. This is one of my smartest, coolest, most brilliant friends, funniest. By the way, she's my employer in times of great duress. Like, fuck it. Who needs... Oh, you know what? She's an Emmy nominee.
2-time.
Oh, I got gagged. Oh, I got properly gagged. She's an art director. I've seen her in a room full of men take the stage as the only woman and direct the world.
That's nice.
Talking about Project Runway, of course. Please welcome to your ear, Mr. Amanda Carzoli.
Is there clapping?
He
in this?
transitioned. Yeah, there is. Got some chicken in my throat. Hey, Mandy.
Hi.
Hi, Birch.
Hi, honey.
Hi, hun. Are you happy in life? Tell the truth.
What is this podcast about?
Oh,
This is
girl.
not what we
That's
talked
a
about.
mouthful. Well, yeah, I didn't want to let you think in your head too much. We're actually going to talk about your life's
This is an
happiness.
intervention.
You just got married.
did.
I was at the wedding.
You were.
Are you happy?
I am.
Yeah. It's a beautiful ceremony.
Thank you.
Beautiful house you built upstate, too.
Thanks. You're making me sound so pretentious.
No, I
and
thought
more interesting than
cosmopolitan.
I am.
Well, I want people to think like, oh, look at this colorful community of friends Hilta has.
Right.
So I'm painting you as cosmopolitan as I can.
I love that.
Hey.
This is when your Tourette's really shines.
I know. Do you think I have it? Do you think I'm on the spectrum? BT.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
No, that's the thing. Is I'm not, but
Right.
I'm like really trying to be.
Right.
You
Which is
know.
its own.
Which is even worse.
Which is-
I mean, not that being on the spectrum is
right.
bad.
I didn't
Good
say
God,
that.
I
Yeah.
didn't either.
That was you.
That was the demon inside me.
I don't think you're on the spectrum. Not that it would be a problem if you were. I don't think you have Tourette's.
No, it wouldn't be a problem at all. It would actually be a bonus.
Yeah, I think so.
But unfortunately, I'm not. Are you?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, before we do any shit, because we have a lot to get to, so quit the diddle daddle, of course. This question is becoming more and more redundant as we go on. So do you know the 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte, Samantha,
I thought about this
Jemima,
this morning.
Hannah, Shoshana, Marnie. Who are you in it? And then at the end, I think what we do is ask who you are the 8 in the subject matter we're discussing.
Oh.
Okay. So, but for now, the classic 8. Who you?
Okay. I think normally, because I have main character syndrome, probably.
I mean, yeah,
don't
you're
know.
a Carrie.
Yeah, I think so.
You're a
But
Carrie.
I think that
Emmy nominees.
I think
often are.
normally I'm like in between a Carrie and a Miranda because I'm a little messy and a little like.
Yeah, there's a Miranda in quality. I mean, any good Emmy nominee has some Miranda to be organized enough to earn that.
Right. I think I'm not organized though. Like that's how I'm. Because like I specifically remember this episode where Carrie like talks about how she's never missed
My
a
motherboard
dental
myself.
appointment.
Oh, she's like, couldn't miss so much as a teeth cleaning.
Exactly.
And then she wakes up in the night going,
Right. Exactly.
And it's because she's like not into Aiden, by the way.
Right.
That's like why. They're getting back together.
Right.
Just like
So,
that. It's like, God.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm boycotting them ever since they.
There's a
Whatever.
hair.
I was up for a job with them and I didn't get
I
it.
heard about that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It was hell.
But I just wanted to tell you that today I'm showing up as a Charlotte.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You mean because you have a beautiful apartment? I mean, so Amanda, one quick thing is like she does renovations. She renovated her Greenpoint apartment from scratch. I saw the whole process, and she renovated this whole house upstate. And it's unbelievable the stuff that she and Steph, her husband, have done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you love home improvement like so much?
Right now I hate it. Like I would say maybe ask me in 6 months to a year. Maybe 6 months. Maybe
I'll
3 to 6.
I'll ask you in 4.
Maybe ask me tomorrow.
November, December, January. I'll ask you tomorrow on Halloween.
I think, yeah, that's scary. I think that it's like everybody thinks that home improvement is this like really cute montage of wearing overalls and like being like having paint on your nose.
It's not that.
But it's like
that's like how I picture you.
Yeah, it's not that. It's like there's a lot of diarrhea.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's not just home improvement,
it's
honey.
anxiety.
That's life. That's a typical
it's
morning.
really disruptive, and it's really like I don't know how these people do it. So
Who? The brothers?
just like the influencers and like
Like
people
Zoe
who,
Deschanel's husband.
Oh God,
They are
that is
weird looking.
freaky.
Talk about the spectrum. God, I'm gonna get canceled.
You are
Whatever.
for sure.
All the best girls do. Woody Allen. What am I saying? I have got to stop. I love Mia Farrow, so just to be clear. In the 8 today, I'm kind of shosh because I joined a gym this morning, a rock climbing gym, and then I worked from their co-working space, and now I'm here, and like shosh would do that kind of thing. Mandy. Mandy, you there, son? Yes, Mandy Patinkin. What are you babbling on about today?
Today, I'm babbling on about You've Got Mail.
You've got mail!
Did you practice that?
I didn't. Did you think? I know there were flaws, but it did kind of sound good.
I really like. I think it was like
a different
good sound bite.
register. Because you've heard me sing.
I have.
We worked on Project Runway together.
did.
Those were the like darkest days of my life.
I thought you were gonna say some of the best.
No, that's when I got in a car accident. That's when I hit my head on an IKEA shelf and bled out. That's when I got COVID. That's when.
Talk about that. Anyway.
He wasn't my boyfriend.
Right.
I'm gonna babble that part.
Yeah.
Cried in the car to Someone Like You and Deja Vu.
Cried in
on
my
the
apartment.
highway. Cried in your apartment.
To my husband.
Like was such a brat to you. At work, you'd be like, "Can you go get like this box?" And I'd be like, "Why didn't you get it?" Remember that? And you had to be like, "Do we need to talk?"
Is everything okay?
Anyway,
But maybe it was, in your defense, maybe it was the head trauma from the IKEA
because
shelf.
I was at IKEA shopping for Project Runway, and I stood up really fast, and there was a shelf.
You probably could have
And then I
sued.
felt it with my hand,
the
and my
show.
hand was covered in blood, and I walked out of the thing, and there was blood like all over my face and neck, and then I just drove home. You think I could have sued?
I think it's worth a shot. It's always worth a shot with suing corporations.
I wish you had told me that. I've had other head injuries on the job that whatever. Anyway, You've Got Mail.
Yep.
Directed by Nora Ephron. Written by Nora and Delia Ephron. 1998.
Produced also by Nora Ephron.
Oh, that's a production by Nora?
Yeah.
Tell me, why did you pick this film of anything you could have talked about?
I mean, if you know me, it's the most obvious. It's like the defining trait of my personality.
UV.
I hate to say it. Yeah,
UV's
UV.
your
yeah.
trait. Yeah.
It's the thing that I care most about in life.
Oh, shit. Girl, we need to get you some
I
help.
know, right?
No.
It is true. But I'm happy to. I've seen this movie like at least 200 times.
Since childhood?
Since actually.
Because in 98, you would have been,
I was 10.
42?
Okay, bitch. I was 10.
UK.
Newly. But I think honestly, since.
Tell the truth.
I'm telling you the truth. Since I was maybe 25, I've seen this movie 200 times. Because I went through a breakup.
Oh, shit. I'm so sorry. You're married now. You have
if that was
everything. You have
genuine.
house. No, it was. Because I think breakups are like harder than any other experience.
It was, and we lived together. And
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I remember you telling me all this.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
It was it was an awful breakup, and we had a TV and internet through my now ex-boyfriend, and
Wasn't it?
no, okay, oh my god,
I'll babble. I'll babble.
Anyway, I don't care. I'm an open book. So as
No,
I
but
was
I'm
saying,
gonna babble that.
I had TV and internet through this person that I was living with and dating, and we broke up, and it was really, really messy. We'd lived together for a couple of years, and he moved out, and he took the TV and the internet with him. And
Okay.
so I had a computer.
Okay.
And so one night I went to CVS,
Okay.
and this was when you could still put a DVD in your computer.
Oh, those were the days. Those were the damn
you
days.
know?
I'm
And-
pissed this computer doesn't take DVDs. Like, what the fuck
I
are you
know.
for then?
Right. Except
A
everything
few-
else.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes SD cards.
Does mine? Oh, anyway, so I went to CVS and I was like, I got to get some candy and like a magazine because that's what I do in my main character of my movie.
Exactly what you mean.
And I was like, you know that like they used to have those racks
Yeah.
at CVS.
Do they not have the racks
of
anymore?
like I don't think
God,
so.
we live
'cause
in
people don't
fucking
watch
climate
DVDs.
change.
But I was like, oh yeah, I'll get a movie. And so all that was really available in this DVD rack
Oh,
was
you meant
like
DVD rack.
yeah.
I thought you meant magazines. Like, damn, Prince.
Yeah, that was confusing. But all they had was like it was like Veggie Tales.
Ew, that's like
Right.
Christian propaganda. It makes
is.
me sick.
Veggie Tales adaptation, which
Oh, with Meryl?
it's Nicolas Cage, right?
Yeah, but Meryl's in
Is
it
she?
too.
I haven't seen it, as you can tell.
Girl, it's a Charlie Kaufman vehicle. Like, we need to get you
we
to
should.
it. It's a really good movie.
And as you may have guessed, You've Got Mail was also an option.
And you had never seen it?
I saw
so
it
you
when I
didn't
was
start-
like 10.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, or not 10, but like once when I was like a
Oh,
child.
that's
then
interesting.
It was the only movie I had. And so I watched it. I didn't have internet. I just watched You've Got Mail.
Oh,
like,
this
that's the
is
origin
so
story.
interesting. So that's how it imprinted upon
Yeah.
you. And when you had seen it first as a 10-year-old, had you been like, wow? Or had you been like, oh, there's a movie?
Don't remember.
Okay,
No
yeah.
recollection
Yeah.
at all. Didn't care about it.
Well, it kind of would go over the head of a 10-year-old, even though it's PG as far as I'm aware.
I think it's PG.
They say bitch in it.
Do they? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
he does. And that
He
is
calls
a
her a
moment.
bitch.
I know.
Let me just see. Rating.
Should we say what it's about?
Yeah.
Or should I?
Yeah. I mean, broad strokes. What's it about? Exactly. And then we'll go through the plot as we
Yeah.
love to do. Rating of You've Got Mail. How do you see the rating? Sorry for the dead space, but I'm not seeing.
I think it's PG.
PG. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
it is. All right, sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, so broad strokes,
Okay.
what is this film? It's
Okay.
a weird film,
It's a weird
ultimately.
movie.
Yeah.
I wrote just this little part down, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Because I didn't want to fuck this up.
By all stretch.
Because it's so important.
I get you.
You've Got Mail is a 1998 romantic comedy co-written, directed, and produced by the late, great Nora Ephron. It stars Meg Ryan as Kathleen Kelly, Upper West Side independent bookstore owner, and Tom Hanks as Joe Fox, face of a book empire that threatens to put Kathleen out of business.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Full stop.
Full stop. But as we've both, learned in our research, I knew you learned.
I learned a few things. Yeah,
few
if you're
things.
about to talk about adaptation again in a different lens.
I'm not actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep going.
I was just going to talk about, so You've Got Mail is a 1998 Christmas time that came out in December.
It is a holiday movie, which
it
this
is a
will
holiday
kind of
movie.
serve as our ode to the holidays,
Yeah.
unless we come up with some
But
others.
it's like a season. It's a movie of seasons.
It's an autumnal into Christmas movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's based on a 1940 rom-com.
It's a play, right? A Hungarian play is what
Originally,
Wikipedia told
yeah.
me.
It was a Hungarian play, and then that was adapted into a
Book.
movie.
Oh,
movie.
Oh, The Shop Around the Corner.
Yes.
It was called. Yeah. Oh, I read that as a book.
Which, Easter
the mug
egg.
says the shopper. Oh, we're drinking coffee, and the mug says the shop around the corner, and it has Alice in Wonderland, the Mad Hatter, a dragon,
So that's the
Tin
logo.
Man, Scarecrow.
There's a mug. There's a real store.
There's
in
a
the
real
city
store.
called Books of Wonder.
That's still open?
Still open.
Oh,
it's a children's bookstore.
shit.
It's on West 17th Street.
Oh, okay.
And so the
Chelsea,
logo-
huh? So the gay guys have kids, I guess.
The logo of the Books of Wonder is the same that they used for Shop Around the Corner, the little bookshop that Meg Ryan runs, is modeled very closely off of Books of Wonder, so much so that they were like, can we rip your logo? And they were like, let's do it.
Wow. Sorry, I just blacked out because I was thinking
Yeah.
about other things I want to say. I mean, broad context. So we didn't really address that this is a romantic comedy and that it's also kind of a capitalist critique with a really shocking ending where you would think like the little shop wins. And one thing I also want to say up front is like with this whole podcast, I've never really addressed this, but it's spoiler heavy. If you don't want a spoiler for the movie, I encourage you to go watch the movie first and then come back and listen. Even if you have seen it before, it might enhance your listening experience, but it's not necessary. And I'm an avid podcast listener and I listen to movie podcasts about movies I haven't even seen and I still enjoy it. So pick your poison. But
Everybody should watch it anyway.
you should watch it, especially this time of year, especially if you live in New York or if you just love New York. Like
that is, to me, like the rom-com-ness of You've Got Mail. I don't really care about the romance between Kathleen Kelly and Joe Fox, which is Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. It's really a love letter to New York.
Yeah.
It
It's
is
pornographic.
a romance.
It's New York porn.
It is New York porn. It is a romance purely focused on New York City, where you have two completely separate people who are in love with New York.
Yeah.
And so they love each other.
They love each other. Most of the movie, I despise Joe Fox, Tom Hanks' character, which you're supposed to.
Yeah.
But like, I don't want them to be together. At the end, somehow it does kind of come around and you're like happy they end up together and it's emotional and cute. Spoiler alert.
Also, because he's rich. And I'm like,
and
she deserves.
ultimately, so is she. Like, let's be honest, her apartment. I mean, this brings us to walking through the chronological beats of the film, which opens with this lo-fi sort of animated move through New York City where you see it. It almost looks like The Sims or something.
Yeah.
And then it gets to this townhouse at the end that is like an animation. And I remember turning to Benny, my friend, who is your friend, who is how I know you, who I watched this movie with to prep. And I went, that townhouse is so cute. And then it transitioned into being not the animated version, but the actual townhouse. And I gagged.
Right.
And she lives there. So she's clearly not poor.
Well, but also, like, this was 1998. So, I mean, there's a line not much later on where, or maybe halfway through the movie, where one of the bookshop owner
I know what you're gonna say.
who's
This is
afraid
like-
that they're going to lose their job, their store is going to shut down, and she's never going to find another part-time job, and she's going to have to move to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it's like the horror. I mean, 1998, all of this is a stretch, and I think this is also a good time to say this movie, in my opinion, it's my favorite movie. It's a perfect movie of its kind for what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
I think it does it. I think it is a dazzling example of a late 1990 rom-com. It's not a perfect movie in many other ways, but
its imperfections make it more interesting.
Exactly. And so, like, with that, let's just all remember about willing suspension of disbelief, because I think
totally. You have to do that with all Nora Ephron movies, because like it's about like this rich interior decoration porn, basically.
it is, but it's also like almost every movie, unless it's a documentary, you're sort of like, all right, I'm in. Like, you're trying to make me feel something.
Totally.
You're
Sex and the
I'm a
City.
puppet,
Like,
you're playing
Carrie
with me.
wouldn't be able to afford that apartment. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book.
There's so many beats in this movie where you're a little bit like, all right, hold on a second here. But it's like, just get rid of that.
Yeah, you have
and
to let
just
that
enjoy
go.
it.
I mean, it's in a similar vein to like separating art from artist. It's like you have to let go of like, this is how it would actually go, and be like, this is a movie. Like, just embrace it for what it is. And you can do that in real life with people in your life too, by the way. Like, embrace people for who they are. Don't try and change them. Like, that's one of my core beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's how I have managed to stay friendly with lots of different kinds of people.
I think that's called maturing.
Yeah. I feel like I have a million things I need to say,
I know.
but off of your point about the move to Brooklyn thing, she's my favorite character in the movie. That's Heather Burns. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do.
You might know her from Miss Congeniality, doing the like April 20th is my favorite date because it's not too chilly thing. She is in this movie as the store shop girl.
Yes.
At Shop Around the Corner of Meg Ryan's store, and she's so like low energy, deadpan in a really funny, honest way. And when they're talking about how she might have to move to Brooklyn, Steve Zahn, who's another worker in the store who is looking extremely attractive and cute, I'll add. He goes on to be the dad in White Lotus season 1, among other things. He mentions he has a rent stabilized place that's 6 rooms for $450 a month, which is insane. I don't know if that could ever happen. But then Heather Burns goes, how can you bring that up at a time like this? It's like those people who brag because they're tall. Which the first half of that, I'm like, thank you. I hate when people bring up that they have a good deal on an apartment or something like that. Because I'm like, fuck you. Like, die. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
Low key, I have a jealous streak. Not even a streak, more like a whole canvas. And then it's like people who brag because they're tall is just so genius. It's like, yeah, like some things can't be helped, like your height. Of course I am.
I'm silent on this because I'm tall and I would never brag about that.
I'm average height, and I guess I need to remain silent because low key, I'm a little bit. I love short people. It's just that I'm really attracted to tall people, and so it can be difficult for me in the world. Anyway, do we want to do broader context of film, like regarding Nora and stuff before we go in, or should we?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
I really do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do some broad context stuff.
Okay.
Let's start with Nora Ephron.
Please.
Yeah. What do you want to say about Mrs. E?
Nora Ephron is, I can't remember when she died. I think it was 2004.
I didn't realize she was dead. You clued me in on that on our way back from a job we just did together, which was for a YouTube video where it's 3 hours of a burning fireplace, which is so funny.
She died in 2004. I think she didn't tell anybody that she was sick. She kept working she didn't want anybody to tell her to stop. And she passed away from I don't know exactly what type of cancer it was.
Yeah. Poor thing.
But yeah, very sad. We
need to cure cancer, by the way.
I know.
Like, it's time.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
More on that.
That will be addressed again one day.
That's the next episode.
Cancer is the
From
topic.
You've Got Mail.
Why do I need to knock on wood now?
There's no wood in this apartment. No.
Wait, where's some real wood? I'm like a wood knocker.
There's a
freak.
tree trunk table right there.
Anyway, what were you saying?
We were talking about Nora Ephron.
Oh, so she passed away.
Nora Ephron passed away, but just like quick, this is who she is.
Yeah.
She was born in New York City.
Oh, I read on Wikipedia Beverly Hills.
She was born in New York and grew up in Beverly Hills.
Oh, okay.
So she was born in New York City. Her parents were both
screenwriter, playwrights. Yeah,
exactly.
So she comes from an artistic and wealthy-ish background.
Probably. Oldest of 4 girls. Mm-hmm. They're all writers.
Yep.
They grow up in Beverly Hills. She always wants to move to New York and live in New York and be a writer. It's her dream. Mm-hmm. So she graduates from Wellesley. Wellesley girl.
We did our research together.
Sure did. And
she gets a job.
She gets a job at
Newsweek.
But did you watch that show? Did you watch what was that show called? I wrote it down.
What show?
It was on Good Girls Revolt. It was like one season on Amazon.
Because she sued she's part of a lawsuit.
Nora Ephron applied to be a writer at Newsweek and they were like, sorry toots, we don't hire girls.
Yeah. So is that how it went?
That's what happened. Okay. So she took a job in the mailroom, worked there for a little bit, and then quit because she got a job writing for New York Post. And during that time, like shortly after she left Newsweek, a bunch of women from Newsweek who were kept out of writers' jobs formed a class action lawsuit against Newsweek for sexual discrimination. And they won.
Yeah.
So she writes for the Post and she develops this name for herself, and then she has a column for Esquire where she writes about like women's issues.
Oh, I didn't know she had a column. This is exciting because it makes me inspired. Because I'm like, oh, our tracks aren't so different. I mean, of course, like I've ended up with a lot more unemployment and, you know,
they skip over all that stuff
content
in the
Wikipedia. They don't bother with
they
like
don't bother.
the years of unemployment and the years of like sex app addiction.
It's just like decades. Yeah. So then she goes on and she starts writing screenplays.
Yeah.
And
she does a rewrite on All the
80s,
President's Men, I guess. It gets her noticed, which is random.
It is, but she also meets her first husband.
Who's like an investigative journalist.
Right. Do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
So I was telling Hilton before we started recording that I was listening to the beginning of Izzy's episode, which is the last episode.
Yeah.
And in Izzy's episode, you are talking about, for a moment, you guys talk about the movie Dick with with Michelle Williams and what else is in it?
Holy fuck!
Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, and the two of them pretend to be Deep Throat.
Richard Nixon.
Well, no,
Deep Throat.
Deep Throat, who's the informant,
alias for the informant for Watergate.
Yes. So I listened to that and I'm like, oh my god, segue. Carl Bernstein, who was Nora Ephron's first husband, was a journalist with Bob, Woodward, I believe. And Bob Woodward is Deep Throat. And Nora Ephron...
D. Woody is D?
Nora Ephron knew for like 30 years who Deep Throat was. She used to tell everyone, like moms
she was
at her son's school, she'd be like, yeah, I know who Deep Throat is.
So she's a definitive babbler.
I'm sorry. I'm actually misquoting history.
You're getting it wrong.
No, I know.
But ultimately we just say stuff on here and it becomes true.
Deep Throat is actually,
that's the
I know, right?
information age we're in.
Deep Throat is Mark Felt. But
love that last name.
Yeah, but he was the informant from the FBI who was talking to Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward. And so Deep Throat was the informant, which
and
is
she
Mark
knew
Felt.
because her first husband was the one breaking the Watergate news?
With like his other partner.
Wow, she really has quite the lore, doesn't she?
She figured it out because her husband would jot notes down when he was talking on the phone to fucking Deep Throat.
God, that is heaven. To jot notes while taking a phone call is such a retro tifo.
I know. And so then he'd jot notes down. He'd either be talking to Deep Throat or to Bob Woodward, who was also talking to Deep Throat. Really, Bob Woodward. Anyway,
I'm sorry, who came up with Deep Throat? Like, that sounds like something from the modern day.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I bet like nobody batted an eyelash either. They just were like,
are they really processing what that is?
Did you hear what Deep Throat said?
I could go deeper on this throatish topic, but you know what? I won't. I'm trying to restrain my whorish tendencies a little bit.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So she used to write down MF. Her husband would write down MF. Would write down MF. He'd be like talking about the Nixon thing. He'd write down MF. She'd go MF. That's got to be Mark Felt. She knew who this was, and she was like, "What's that? What's MF?" And her husband was like, "Oh, it just means my friend." And she was like, "Bullshit. Deep Throat is Mark Felt. I know
you
it.
liar!"
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're coming out of that.
So we're
coming out of that. So Nora Ephron started writing screenplays in the early 1980s. She also writes a book called Heartburn and a screenplay for that. It's about her relationship with Carl Bernstein.
Oh, okay.
So
is it nonfiction? Or is it fictionalized?
So it's fictionalized.
Okay, that's like the book I'm writing.
So she writes When Harry Met Sally.
Yes, I do want to say, not to poop on your parade, but her earlier work, Silkwood, she has 3 screenplay Oscar nominations. She no wins, poor dear. The first is Silkwood, which I saw when I did a Meryl Oscar nomination retrospective and watched all of Meryl's movies.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you're kidding. Cher's in it as well. And Cher plays a lesbian. And it's about like
I've just been watching
lead
You've Got
in the
Mail
water
every
or
single
something.
day of my life that I don't have time. But
Honestly, You've Got Mail is a more pleasant
this is kinda
watch.
dumb.
But if you're a Meryl completist, you'd better get on that.
Right. It's more the Nora thing, but
Tifalality. And then that's 83, Oscar nom for her debut. Whoop-de-doo for her.
Right.
Then we get When
it's
Harry
an honor
Met
just
Sally.
being nominated.
I mean, it literally is.
Right.
My dream is an Oscar nom. Actually, my dream would be
EGOT.
winning original screenplay and actress in the same year for a movie I wrote.
Isn't that-
Silkwood. Although I would run an actor because I'd rather take away a man's spot than a woman's. And I think it would be easier to win because men typically aren't so good.
All right.
So When Harry Met Sally, back to that,
Right.
89, regarded as probably her best reviewed film. And that wins the BAFTA and is listed by the Writers Guild of America as the 40th greatest screenplay of all time.
I mean, so she's a legend.
So why didn't you pick that over I mean, I guess you explained that you
It's
have
just there's this like specific origin of why this happened, but I also think that When Harry Met Sally is actually much more about the relationship.
Yeah.
And if you put yourself in that time where I was going through this terrible breakup, you wouldn't really like, you don't really actually want to watch a rom-com when you're
Right, you don't want to
experiencing
cheer for a
heartbreak.
happy
Exactly.
couple.
And like, to me, You've Got Mail, they don't get together until they don't even know each other or each other.
They hate each other,
Right.
and he's like a total douchebag.
He is a douchebag.
And that you don't want them to get together. So it's really funny. The ending is really shocking to me. I've only seen this movie twice, the second time being 2 nights ago, and it's just so not the ending you're expecting.
It's not.
You expect her to win. In case we haven't made it clear, it's about a little bookshop against a big, like, Barnes & Noble giant, who, by the way, I love Barnes & Noble. I used to work for them. And when I interviewed to work there, they were like, why do you want to work at Barnes & Noble? What do you like about it here? And I go, it's really warm.
Like, temperature-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
You were
it's
cold.
like it's nice and warm.
What
in
month
here.
was it?
It was like November in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Anyway, lost my train of thought, but yeah,
Barnes
shocking
Noble.
ending because the little shop ends up closing and capitalism
It does.
wins. Yeah,
Yeah. Which I think for all of the ways that the movie, as you're watching it, there are some moments where you're like, ooh, cringe, or like, that wouldn't have really happened like that. You do have to give a 1998 rom-com something for actually letting the
like
story
this
close.
is what would actually
This is
happen.
what would actually
like
happen.
big business does kill little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It does.
I mean, look at that hardware store in Williamsburg that just
Crest.
closed. Yeah,
R.I.P.
rest in peace.
So,
Okay, so yeah, Harry Met Sally, and then Sleepless in Seattle '93 is a third Oscar nom for her.
okay, which like I don't love, I have to say. Can I just say
I don't think
it?
I've seen it.
To me, Sleepless in Seattle is You've Got Mail beta. Like, there's a lot. It's also Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
You've Got Mail is the third time we see Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan together.
Have you seen that first one?
Yes.
What's it called?
It's called Joe and the something.
I have it written down somewhere.
It's really weird.
Yeah, it's like bizarre. It's
I
a bizarre
like it.
title. Joe and the Dragon Castle or
Nope,
something.
that's not it.
Where is it? Oh, maybe I didn't write it down. Some weird ass piece of.
It's really weird. I appreciate it and I do like it, but it's also like not a film that I would.
Oh, Joe versus the volcano.
Yeah, that's it. Joe versus Volcano. It's not something that I would watch 200 times. But I do like seeing Tom Hanks, and I like seeing both of them in this very out of their regular element.
Because what is
role.
that? Are they like volcano?
No,
people?
like he
Which
works
that's
in
a
an
really good movie.
office.
Burning Love or something. It's a
Mm-hmm.
documentary about this couple who are volcano. This is a side tangent, but there's this amazing documentary called like Fire of Love or something that came out recently that is about a husband and wife who are like volcano scientists, and they
Cool.
recorded all this shit. You should check it out. Anyway, sorry.
Do
keep
they
going.
survive?
Do you want to know?
No.
You actually know at the beginning if they do or not.
I feel like now that we're saying this, I feel like I briefly heard about this, Googled it, and they're dead.
They died.
Yeah. That's also
What'd
sad.
you expect?
Okay.
Sorry. So yeah. So this is your favorite of their 3 pairings.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, because I feel like the thing about the thing that I love about Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan has nothing to do with the two of them together. I think I love each of them as their own fully developed character on their own, but I don't think I actually buy them as a romantic pairing.
No.
And this movie, it doesn't happen until the very last scene.
Yeah, like they really are on their own journeys. I mean, they're interacting. It's not the type of thing where like they haven't met till the end. They're interacting a lot.
Yeah.
But they're also having their own fully separate stories
Yeah.
until the end.
Yeah. Can we also just, because I feel like we keep getting off topic,
Yeah.
but so Joe Fox owns Fox Books, which is like a Barnes Noble that's coming to the Upper West Side, and threatens to shut down the shop around the corner, which is Meg Ryan's little bookstore that she has had in her mother. It was her mother's store, and she's carrying this legacy on. Joe Fox's business is also a family business
Oh, right.
through his grandfather.
Yeah.
His grandfather. So he's also generationally wealthy. So,
Yeah.
but we see these two, they're enemies, they're business enemies. But also there's this whole, at the time, super high tech thread of the internet,
Yes.
which is they are sort of pen pals. They meet in a chat
Anonymous chat room. They meet. It's the chat room over 30.
Yeah.
For over 30s.
room. Over 30s.
And they're talking just about New York and about other things they love. But they don't disclose any details that would give
Right.
away their identity. And they
Right.
just have this like blossoming email chain.
Or the fact
behind
that
their
they're both
significant
in-
others' backs.
Right. They're both in relationships.
They're both in relationships.
They meet online throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah.
We see them hating each other, but also not knowing.
And then confiding
that
to
they're-
their pen pal.
which
not
is also
realizing-
each other.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair.
I want to say a few more quick things
Yes,
before we
please.
start going through the plot. Just
Okay.
about so Meg Ryan,
Yeah.
amazing, and we're gonna get into her performance in this. She's so charming. She's so beautiful. Benny was saying how you rarely see this kind of cutesy girl with this like haircut that shouldn't work but does.
Yeah.
Wearing turtlenecks and looking just so stunning, holding a pumpkin. Blah blah. Just to give you her sort of awards trajectory.
Yeah.
She gets a Golden Globe nomination for this for actress in a musical or comedy. Her breakthrough was in Harry Met Sally, which also was a Golden Globe nom. This is shocking, and this is the first of two times I'll bring up The Silence of the Lambs on this, because I'm recording an episode about that. I just watched it last night with my friend Natalie. She was offered the role of Clarice Starling. Have you seen this movie?
Oh, yeah,
It's
of
like
course.
one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so good. I just can't imagine her
It is
playing
so good.
Clarice. It's so good.
I cannot imagine it. I mean, I think that she would have like blown everybody away.
Yeah. Because she's done dramatic stuff outside of the rom-com that she's famous for.
I actually, in reading up for this, was reading that she was very unexcited about the idea of again doing this rom-com thing, because she was just like,
Bored of it.
this is like not a heavy lift for me.
Yeah.
So I think she would have made a great Clarice.
I bet she would have been good as just like, I can't push away Mrs. Jodie Foster.
I mean,
But anyway, one other thing I wanted to mention, two other things, four other things actually, is she does this movie In the Cut, directed by Jane Campion, who is incredible. The Piano is another of my all-time favorite movies. It's like a really artsy, bold, outside of the rom-com cookie cutter mold she's known for, and it's this extensive nude scene. She gets interviewed about it by a misogynist journalist who it becomes one of the most infamous interviews. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't watched it. Maybe we can watch it later.
we should watch it.
Anyway, she was in this movie where the screenwriter had been murdered the previous year called Serious Moonlight, and then she moves into directing. That's basically... Oh, and then the main thing is she's the voice of Anastasia.
Right.
Which is like one of
That's
my
your
all-time...
movie.
Like that I watched every day growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Meg Ryan. I have
Right.
more to say about Tom Hanks, but I feel like let's get to that later.
Yeah.
Because I
also just like, apparently there's a Nora Ephron movie called This Is My Life. And it's about a single mom that's trying to break into stand-up comedy in New York City. And
Did Nora try and do stand-up?
Nora Ephron, I don't know if she wrote, I believe she wrote and directed. She either wrote and or directed. It's one of them.
She
It's
directed
hers.
this.
Yes, she did.
And she didn't direct. I don't think she directed When Harry Met Sally.
No,
Maybe
she
did.
didn't. She
Okay,
only wrote
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Rob Reiner directed
Oh,
Harry
okay.
Met Sally.
Yeah,
But This Is My Life stars Gabby Hoffman, Dan Aykroyd,
she's great.
and Carrie Fisher.
Oh,
among
hi,
others.
heavy hitters.
And Lena Dunham has written about this movie extensively. And there's
Lena-
this whole Lena Nora thing too.
She dedicated her book, Not That Kind of Girl,
Yeah.
which is amazing. That's the one with the controversy about the pebbles up the vagina.
Right.
Which, like, grow up, they were 3. She dedicated that book to Nora Ephron. This movie made $250.8 million worldwide gross on a $65 million budget. I'll let you do the math. It had a website that proved a hub for web design criticism. They chose a children's book instead of adult bookstore because I guess the Ephrons grew up loving children's books more than anything.
When
The
you say
quote-
adult bookstore, you mean
I
like
mean just like non-children's. I don't mean like porn. Trying to break free of my racy past. Do you hear a little child laughing somewhere?
it might be the baby downstairs.
Anyway, to quickly give you Hanks's Oscars, he broke out with Big, which was an Oscar nom for lead actor. Then he won for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. Then he was nominated for Saving Private Ryan and Castaway, and then got a supporting nom for Beautiful Day.
Okay,
so the batteries just died. Real babblers know this is not the first time that's happened. We're back. I just gave you Tom's Oscars history. Now we can really get into the nuts and grits of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before we dive in?
I just also want to tell you that because you mentioned Forrest Gump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Dave Chappelle is in You've Got Mail.
Yes.
Which is
And A Star Is Born.
right.
Okay.
Dave Chappelle and Tom Hanks are friends
In real life.
in real life, and Tom wanted him to play Bubba in Forrest Gump.
Who does end up playing
I don't
Bugs?
know. I don't know that he was famous necessarily, but
Poor guy. No
Dave
fame.
Chappelle was like a little worried about that role, and so this was Tom Hanks being like, "Come on."
Why was Dave worried? Because of like
Because
some
there's
sort
like
of,
racist tropes,
Okay, sure.
and which is I mean, Dave Chappelle is always really pushing.
Isn't Dave our anti-trans daughter?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I am disavowing her as my daughter,
I know.
and she's going to prison. Oh wait, abolish prison. Sorry,
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna babble that. Okay, so as we've said,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I've never seen Philadelphia, actually. I do want to circle back to that.
It's so good.
But Tom deserves his Forrest Gump Oscar. Oh, and Philadelphia is directed by Jonathan Demme, who did Silence of the Lambs.
I don't know directors like that.
I think. Anyway, that's for another podcast. Into the film itself, lo-fi opening Sims-y world of New York that transitions into real life.
Yep. Immediately we're in Kathleen Kelly's apartment.
Yep.
The very first thing that you are wanting to understand is that she lives on the Upper West Side in a brownstone in an apartment she seemingly lived in for 20 plus years.
Which she has holy fuck, is that a stroke? Which she has designed on the interior, decorated to be so like lacy, girly.
It is somebody who, the apartment is painted like this golden yellow. It's very warm. It's lived in.
Yeah.
There's books and lamps with, there's like lace. There's also, if you know this movie like I do, you see things and notice things like her pillowcases have daisies on them because daisies are the friendliest flower. As Kathleen Kelly says. This movie is like fraught with intention
and detail.
And
that's, I think, Nora's signature. Is like
is.
super detail. And actually, I wanted to say, when Benny and I were watching it, I was like, she actually kind of reminds me of Amanda. And I'm realizing you probably did take, because I took some of my personality from Carrie Bradshaw. I think you did take some of yours from her.
I thought you were saying that in like a more organic way. And now I feel conflicted.
No. I was meaning it as a compliment and organic, and like it just so happens that you guys are similar.
Yeah,
but
like,
also, I want to point out the phenomenon of like, I think we do sort of imbue ourselves with the characteristics of some of the fictional characters we grow to love.
Yes.
Like Anastasia also taught me to be a little bit brassy.
Right.
And then
I love that that's your movie character parallel is
Anastasia. I had action figures of her in her blue dress and yellow dress.
Are there pictures?
I'll find them. Okay. And then the other thing, I keep cutting you off, but you're an art director. That's what you were Emmy nominated for: production design, art design, art direction. And Nora Ephron, it's so perfect that you love her, because I feel like if you're going to single out one thing about her filmography, it's the attention to detail in the art design.
Yeah. I mean, I would also argue, though, that like Nora Ephron is a storyteller, and she embodied that in every capacity. She, in the art direction, in the transitions, in the music, in the costumes, like she is telling a story. I'm like, we're on so many tangents, so I'm gonna get to this much later. But there's this part where you see like a detail shot of Tom Hanks's hand toward the end, and I'm like, oh God, why are his nails so shiny? And like it really bothers me. But it's also like he's a businessman, like he doesn't work with his hands, and like his hands are really
gets
clean.
Manicures,
but she is a storyteller, and I think that for what makes her such an incredible storyteller and such a prolific filmmaker was that she made sure that in everything she did, there was intention, and she was telling a story, whether it was art design or sound or.
It would be easy to be like, oh, she came from money Beverly Hills art parents, like she had it all handed to her. And in some senses, I'm sure it was easier for her than a lot of other people to do this. But then she took those opportunities and really worked hard and did imbue every aspect of her films with as much detail as possible, which is ultimately all you can do.
Yeah. I mean, also it's like, you never know. Like, you don't know.
You never know. I mean, I don't even know if she came from money. What am I saying? I guess I'm just like
Beverly Hills sounds it,
because I'm like, I want to be her. But you know what? I still could be, and I think I'm actually on track to do it. So.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, you're sweet. And you're an Emmy nominee, so 2-time. Okay.
Thank you for getting it right that time.
Yeah.
So her apartment is like warm and lived in and beautiful. And in this first scene, you're seeing Kathleen Kelly, and she's interacting with her partner, her boyfriend, who is Greg Kinnear.
Yeah.
Who they couldn't be less connected as a couple. And you just see that immediately. And there's also this hilarious exchange where Greg Kinnear is talking about how he's reading in the newspaper that the entire workforce of the state of Virginia had to have solitaire removed from its computers because nobody was getting any work done.
Yeah.
Which is a hilarious, dating of the movie.
And he calls it the end of Western civilization.
Yes.
And then she's secretly running off to go on AOL right after that.
Yes.
Which to me, the modern day equivalent would be the iPhone/Grindr sniffy.
Yeah. His character is he's attached to his typewriter. He's a columnist for the New Yorker, I believe.
Or
The
Post or something. I forget. It might be the Post.
It's not the Post.
It's not the Post, is it?
The Observer.
Oh, it's the Observer. I knew it had an O, which the Post is a P.
I kind of see what you mean.
Okay,
I thought that was
you
around
get it.
the Post. The Post. So they're very opposite. They're very not connected.
So is it just the solitaire thing? I mean, like, how else are we? Because I feel like I maybe less picked up on that they were not connected as you're suggesting in that first scene.
I think that she's not really listening to him.
Yeah.
She's not
they're
really.
Just like not really talking about the same thing.
Yeah. And she's, I also could be projecting, I think, other. Like, there's many.
No, I think it's true,
scenes,
but I think
though.
I think it builds. I think at first you're like, oh, they're not like exactly connected, and she's running off to AOL after he says solitaire is the end of Western civilization, but they're still like happy.
Yeah, but it is. You do get the sense right out the gate of a couple where one person is like pressing their views on the other person, and that's the entirety of the exchange.
Yeah,
like he's like, "This is how it is. This is how it is,"
There's
and she's like, "Oh, huh." There's not really this like loving volley.
Yeah, totally. But it's interesting because it's not like they're like Fuck you.
They're not. But I mean, I think
They're not fighting.
I think a lot of what this movie is trying to say about relationships is that
it doesn't have to be fights. If it doesn't work,
it doesn't have to be explosive fighting for it to not work, and it also doesn't have to be explosive fireworks for it to be romance.
Yeah, both important lessons.
And I do think that sort of like centrist view is also it is another check in this other box of
let's get centrist.
Yeah.
Wait, this episode is going to come out on election day.
Wow.
I'm just realizing.
I mean, isn't what we all need? Because
vote for Kamala if you're listening day of. Grassroots for Kamala.
God, I'm scared.
She's just so funny with her laughter.
Right. I mean, it's just.
I mean, of course, we need her to step up the policy, but let's just get voting for her.
Let's just get,
vote.
It's sponsored by Babbling On.
By the Democratic Sponsored by the Working Families Party.
Right.
Everyone's saying vote yes on Prop 1 and no on the other 5.
In this movie, I mean, in a way, this movie is a critique on, the economy.
Yeah. But it's a grim critique because in the end, it's like the big girl wins.
Wow. Okay.
Back on track.
Back on track.
Should we now meet Tom Hanks and his girlfriend, the indomitable Parker Posey? Who's everything.
Oh my God. I mean, the casting in this, I mean,
it's so good.
I don't know that there's a single person in this movie that I feel could have been played better by anyone else.
I agree with you, honestly. There's not a weak link. Everyone is great. I mean, I guess Tom Hanks, like dad and grandpa, I'm like a little bored by.
His grandfather is a little like, older man.
Is his dad in it too, or is his dad dead?
His dad, no, he's in it. I mean, not his real dad.
Right.
That's how movies work.
Is his real dad? No, his real dad is like in...
I don't know anything.
He's a chef, I think.
Oh,
a cook. I mean, like not so grand as a chef.
Right.
If Wikipedia serves. Anyway,
Tom Hanks, Parker Posey, immediate juxtaposition. By the way, of the apartment, the setup there. Like you have this warmth and these layers and this very lived-in vibe with Kathleen's apartment, and then we are in Joe's apartment.
Cold, modern,
very modern, angular. It's not unfriendly, but it is, you can tell that it's a place that not a lot of time is spent because the two people who live there are moguls and they're they're wheeling and dealing.
And yet you do learn pretty quickly that Tom Hanks has a love for the nostalgic and for the lived in, even if he doesn't have it himself, because he says in his AOL message, she doesn't know that he's saying this, but he is typing anonymously that, don't you just love New York in the fall? It makes me want to buy school supplies.
What a line.
Which, like, is the thesis of a whole subset of this world.
I mean.
Which is the autumnal auroras.
You took it.
I took it and I landed it.
Yeah, you took it. I would have just blinked at you and you would have heard like the water in my eyes splashing around. That's how I would have ended it. Yeah.
There's a really important thing that I'm just going to go for here, which is there's parallels in the sense that basically Parker Posey and Greg Kinnear are both kind of pushing their agenda on these other two more passive in these relationships people. And Parker Posey flops a newspaper down on the desk and is rattling off all these thoughts of hers, and she goes, which this is hilarious. She says, like, Marie Chilton died, which makes one less person I'm not speaking to. Mm-hmm. And the reason I am zoning in on that is in The Silence of the Lambs, there's a hateful character named Dr. Chilton who, spoiler at the end of the movie, this is actually a real spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want to know, but he gets eaten alive by Hannibal. And so I like to think that this is existing in the same universe and Marie Chilton is that
I don't think it is. I think it's Marie Choten or something like that. But I'm so sorry. Here you go.
Give it back.
My hands are really sweaty.
What the fuck? Are you nervous or something?
It's like the coffee or something. It's hot in here.
You've been talking about hot in here.
I'm sweating.
It's like warm. Hot's a stretch. Hot's a stretch. You run warm. I run cold.
I guess I do.
Together we run hold.
Oh.
Oh, that actually didn't work.
It's okay.
Okay.
I want to just say about like these two opening scenes where you're seeing Kathleen and her partner, you're seeing Joe and his partner, you're seeing their apartments, you're seeing them talking to each other.
Yeah.
They're immediately committing infidelity. I think the purpose.
So you count this as cheating?
I think
if you were to
I think
do
emotional
this,
infidelity is infidelity. Just, I do.
Okay, T.
Yeah.
Agreed, by the way. If
okay,
my boyfriend, I don't have one, ever was privately emailing, I would kill myself.
Right. But I think that you are, I think they're giving you permission. I think they're sort of saying like, listen, you got to just kind of go with this because these are two mismatched people. And it's for people who are not necessarily in the right thing. And this is going to be happening. And so buckle up, sweetie.
Buckle up. They are doing something sinful, but doesn't that make them a little more interesting?
And they're flawed.
Although, I just got a pit in my stomach thinking about my boyfriend having a private email chain. I don't have a boyfriend. Wait, here's a really important thing. So the mailbox is cute. Like the image of the mailbox on their laptop, which the whole thing, like the sound of them typing, which I just ruined my notes by typing gibberish, is so satisfying to hear. My point is it made me think about Clippy from Microsoft Word. Do you recall the paperclip? She was everything. She ran this town. And did you have the version of Microsoft Word where you could change Clippy to be an orange cat or like an alien? Like there were a few different types of Clippies. There was Clippy the Paperclips classic, and then there was an orange cat. There was like an alien and a robot maybe. Any babblers out there who know this, please dial in and let's start an email thread and you can turn out to be a hot guy. Well, yeah, we could next round. Okay, come back on and we'll do a
figure out the tech.
I have to figure out the tech on that.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
my next note is heaven too.
I'd love to hear it.
All my life.
Okay. Yes. We transition. We're transitioning into the first montage of this film, which is set to.
Sounded amazing. Dreams by the Cranberries, my wedding song, favorite song. I sang it in a live performance before I went to whatever. Fuck it. I sang it at a party once.
Wow, I love that. Yeah. This movie, to my recollection, I believe there are only 2 montages.
Is that possibly true? This movie feels like one big montage.
The whole thing. Yeah. It's a blur. But I think that they're both, like, once again, the 2 montages in this film, they are odes to New York. Mm-hmm. Especially the first.
This movie's an ode.
The second is sort of an ode to Tom Hanks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll get to that one. But in this first one,
I need your opinion on Tom, but let's get to that later.
We'll come to that. But we just see Kathleen Kelly and Joe Ryan moving about the Upper West Side where they both live, unbeknownst to each other. They're total strangers, but they're talking to each other on the internet.
Yeah.
She's going to her little bookstore. He's going to his big media empire. They keep passing each other, but they don't know it. But you see things being romanticized like the pharmacy, the locksmith, the shoe repair.
Well, Upper West Side locksmith, you can't have a more heavenly setting.
That is Nora Ephron though. Like this is her coming through and saying like there's a song in this movie where the lyrics are, I guess the Lord must be in New York City. And it's just like she finds it everywhere. Like this romance is to New York.
Yeah, it's her in love with New York. Which ultimately, by the way, putting Dreams by the Cranberries in this movie, I feel like nowadays it's been in a lot of things. But back then, the song must have been a lot fresher. And this must have been like, holy fuck, Dreams by Cranberries is playing.
I mean, talk about transitions though. Like there's a lot of like, the roll gates are going up on the shops and they time perfectly with like a little...
been a person opening those before when I worked at a vintage store.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to have to open that. Like I'm that. By the way, I realized I'm punk.
Okay.
Did you know?
I didn't.
I'm punk. Like that. I figured out like why I'm like on the fringes and not super successful. It's because I'm punk.
I think you're successful. I think it's a state of mind.
You're a T.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. I need to stop like saying I'm not when I am.
Yeah.
Okay. That breath felt really good. It was like, oh, I'm breathing. Anyway. Oh, I have this written down. So they go to Starbucks, which back then it was
my
like
God.
Starbucks was basically the shop around the corner. It feels, it doesn't feel like a corporate chain somehow.
Well, I think that like of all of the ways that this movie shows its age, like with Barnes and Noble being the threat.
I know, because now we think of Barnes
everything's
and Noble as basically like
vintage,
an organic,
on its way out.
like farmer's stand
You're like, how
on the
quaint.
side of the
Yeah.
road. Yeah.
Like with AOL being, like the dial tone and that
I know.
whole business.
AOL is basically the phone book now.
Yeah.
The yellow
It
pages.
doesn't. But I think that Starbucks is the one thing that is like weirdly the same. Like it looks exactly the same.
Well, they changed the logo because it used to be, it said Starbucks coffee. Now it's just the mermaid, double-tailed mermaid. And I'm noticing
is it?
you've hit play on the
I'm
film.
sorry. No, I'm just like, I'm trying to just like turn it down and just have just some reminder.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
If it's on mute and
Yeah.
we just see it play.
Yeah.
Because it might be distracting, but let's just try.
Okay.
No, the reason I bring up Starbucks is because I wanted to ask, is that the one that Kelly Clarkson peed her pants in?
I don't know anything about that.
Kelly Clarkson peed her pants in a Starbucks because they wouldn't let her use the bathroom.
Like she was like, all right, I'm doing it. Or did it just come out?
She was like, I really
Was
need
it
to pee.
on
And they were like,
purpose?
we don't have bathrooms for customers. And then she like pissed.
While looking the barista in the
I
eye.
think it was Kelly Clarkson.
I
Sounds like her.
need to look into this.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're in the stores.
Well, when we get to the store,
Yeah.
we're introduced to, what's her name? Heather Burns' character.
Well, first
Christina.
we're introduced to Dave Chappelle.
Oh, okay.
yeah. We're introduced to Dave Chappelle.
Who looks great, by the way.
I mean, it now or then?
No, then.
Right, sure.
Now he's a transphobe.
Yeah. Yes. But this was pre.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
was pre.
We see Joe Fox. He's walking around his mega bookstore that's being built. Dave Chappelle is his operations manager or something like that.
Something.
Joe Fox he has just read an email from Kathleen. He's smitten. And
The movie was distracting me.
and I forgot that you have that disorder.
Do you think I'm ADHD?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, really?
I think
Should I take Adderall?
I do not think so.
But isn't that what ADDs
Maybe
do?
there's something else.
Valium.
Oh,
We'll talk. Do you have pills?
I don't. I have Advil. No.
Okay.
Just smells to me Viagra.
Not that I need it.
I think, again, we are being brought into this juxtaposition of we're seeing Joe at work with his work buddy and the people who are surrounding him at work. Who are in this scene just a bunch of faceless construction workers.
As opposed to
the very next scene where we see Kathleen Kelly walking up to the shop around the corner, which is so small you can scan the room and see everything in it. And she has 3 faithful employees who all have names and faces and developed characters of their own, and they are
some of my favorite. I think Heather Burns,
heavenly.
who plays Christina, who is the shop clerk I've mentioned, is my favorite. Gives my favorite moments of this film, honestly, besides some Meg Ryan standouts that you can't ignore, because the first thing that's said, the intro to Christina, Meg goes, "Isn't it the most beautiful day?" And Christina, who's waiting outside to be let in, goes, "I guess, yeah, sure." And I'm like, there's the daughter of the witches you tried to bring in the Salem witch trials.
Flying high on having read this email from Joe, and she's skipping through the streets of New York, and it's actually kind of a gray day. And if you notice, she walks up to the store, she's holding a pumpkin, which is fake. It's fake.
What are you talking about, son?
Go back and watch it. She puts this pumpkin down, and it's she's carrying a stick of gum.
But that doesn't sound like Nora. Wouldn't Nora have insisted on
It's
a real
okay.
pumpkin?
Honestly, I love having
makes
a
me
little
a little
Easter egg
nauseous.
like that to look for.
Sure.
But it's gray. She walks in. She walks past a pile of garbage, and then a cabbie slams on his brakes and is yelling at someone.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Don't you just love New York in the fall?"
So she's blissed out by love. We've all been there.
Haven't we?
Hope to
Until
go
we
back.
haven't.
Love never lasts.
And-
Except for you guys.
Right. And so we immediately see Meg Ryan, Kathleen Kelly in her shop, and we get her moral compass, her question out of the way, which is it infidelity if you're involved with someone online?
Yeah.
So she is in a relationship, even if she's sort of, both of them are questionably in it or not really, but she still feels bad about it. She asks Heather Burns, who plays Christina, is it infidelity if you're involved with somebody online? And Heather Burns asks the very poignant question, have you had sex?
Oh, you sounded just like her. Have you had sex? She has such a good voice.
Oh, God, she's so good. And they get into this whole dialogue about cyber sex. Into which Steve Zahn enters the shop and is also a marvelously cast character, as well as the lovely and also late great Jean Stapleton.
Yeah.
Who plays Birdie. She's like the grandmotherly accountant.
I mean, this scene shows Nora Ephron's like brilliance as a writer, comedically and just in painting these characters in one line, and you get who they are. Like Steve Zahn about the internet is like, the internet is basically just another way of being rejected by women, right? To me. And I mean, totally, like, been there. He's very like misanthropic, you know, kind of. What's misanthropic mean again?
It means like down, like nothing's ever gonna go your way.
Oh yeah, I get that. And then the other, would you call me misanthrope?
No.
Thanks.
I think I think like if anybody tried to say, you're a hopeful misanthrope.
So I'm an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Okay, T. And then she says, so she's like, have you had sex? Mm-hmm. Meg Ryan's like, no,
of course, I haven't met the guy.
And then Christina goes, well, you know what? Don't, because as soon as you do, they lose all respect for you. Right. And just the way she delivers that, you're like,
she's been there.
There's the woman!
Right. She knows. She's speaking from a place of knowing.
I mean, it's true.
Then, like, the older, I mean, Jean Stapleton in this movie is, if you don't know who Jean Stapleton is, Google her, and then you'll go, oh, yeah. I think she's in, like what's that show that's like, what's a deluxe apartment in the sky?
Never.
Okay, it's like some 80s sitcom, you guys. It's an 80s
Sorry,
sitcom.
we're from different generations.
It's also before my time, bitch. I'm just learned.
That was really bitchy of me.
But anyway, she's like in her like late 70s, early 80s already in this movie. But Jean Stapleton's
which
character,
Benny pointed out when he watches
it?
Movies and sees old people, he's always like, I bet they're dead.
Yeah, I do think about that too.
I sometimes do.
But sometimes young people die.
I mean, tell me about
tomorrow's
it.
Episode. Cancer and death.
Holy shit.
Jean Stapleton's character has this remarkable one-liner where she walks into the store and she says, what are you girls talking about? And they say, cyber sex. And she says, I tried to have cyber sex once, but I kept getting a busy signal. And then, like, we're off.
If that ain't me.
And
that is like, wow, Nora, she must have done stand-up. I mean, she's got the goods.
The queen.
Gar.
So we're off to...
Now the butterflies on the subway. We're back to some voiceover of their email exchange. And Meg Ryan's like, I was reading about, like... What was she doing? She's like, she said something like, once I read a story about a butterfly on the subway and today I saw one. Which, by the way, the butterfly, I mean, no shade, but it's like, I know. Obviously the butterfly CGI, looks like CGI. It's like, there's But like, we love to see it. No, of course. Like, it for the looks time. Good in that time. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Oh, there's a few things to say before we get to this, but Greg Kinnear has an addiction to typewriters. Let's get that out. He has 3. Is that already happening? That happens. So basically, this is when they start to fight. Like, so after we've set these characters up, who they are, who their friends up, where they work, like what the central problem is, because I don't know if we've yet to understand, but basically we have... There's 2 central problems, really. Fox Books is opening up just around the corner from the shop around the corner, which, is it a coincidence or is it not? If you ask Kathleen Kelly, she says it's not. Well, wait, isn't... Kathleen Kelly is kind of delusional, though, because this whole time she's like, we'll be fine. Like, it's not going to hurt our business at all. And it's like, girl, yes, it is. Like, wake up.
Right.
Are
Well,
you
this
that
is why
blind?
this is sort of why I like have this playing, because I'm like, what? I know this movie so well, and yet what happens next?
Well, I want to say a few things. Like, so they get in this fight where Greg Kinnear has bought his third typewriter and unveils it and is like, look at this. And she's like, okay. But then she pulls the cover off the other typewriter on that same table and it's like,
Yeah.
you just bought this other one and you have a third one at your office. Like, why did you buy this? And he's like, well, you can never have too many. And it's like, yeah, you can. Like,
But also, if you notice, like, I mean, I will say this about if you watch this whole movie with me, like, you will end up not wanting to be my friend anymore. But
not possible.
I will say that this is also, the scene that you're talking about is one of like the many but most iconic scenes in this movie where Kathleen Kelly and her partner, Frank Navasky, writer for The Observer,
way to go.
is he's obsessed with his typewriter. But the reason we come to know about that is because Kathleen, we've skipped ahead a little bit here, where Kathleen, she's like, there's this bookstore that's opening. Is it going to threaten my existence? What is my existence? Do I even matter?
Yeah,
And
which we've all asked that
Yes.
inescapable question. And some of us are asking it as we speak.
She comes home and she says, like, what is it that I even do exactly?
Right.
And he says, her boyfriend is this
He says something
writer.
really
He
nice.
says, like, what is it that you do? You are a lone read. And what
What's
he's
that
trying to tell her is that she is a lone read, standing tall, waving boldly in a corrupt sense of commerce, which is embarrassing that I know that line
as
so
in
well.
R-E-E-D, not R-E-A-D.
And so he's saying, like, you're alone in this, you're an independent bookstore owner, and that's really brave and heroic to do, whereas there are all of these, corporations coming threatening your existence, and you are standing tall and boldly. But of course, because he can't help himself, because he is this self-absorbed writer, he
as writers usually
are
a little bit redundant.
He starts talking, and in hearing his own words, he becomes so enamored with himself that he starts typing this out. And
I get that.
Kathleen also, it's such a telling moment because you're seeing that this is why they don't work, because she's over here and he's over there, and he's sweet and caring, and it's not a bad relationship, but he's immediately distracted by his own words. Yeah. And Kathleen picks up on this. Why do you have so many typewriters? And there's this moment where Frank stops and she says, don't you have another one of these at your apartment? And he says, I might. Who cares? And they both sort of pause in that moment where you see him sort of calling her out, where he's like, why are you picking on me for this? And they let the moment pass because they're both kind of checked out.
That's so real.
But it's very interesting.
I've been in that moment before.
Yeah. Where you're like, I don't really like this about you, and I don't want to say it, but I don't accept it because I don't accept you.
Fuck. I've been there. Wait, so he doesn't live there?
No, they don't live together.
Oh, okay. I was thinking they live together, and that's why I was like, it's so crazy that there's a doily on every surface. Like,
they don't live together.
Not that men can't like a doily, but
right. I think no, they can't.
But like, yeah, we're aware of the doily type. The doily type. Yeah, so that's really interesting. And then I just lost where I am in my notes, but so Greg, here's a line I wrote down. So much of life reminds me of something I read in a book, but shouldn't it be the other way around? Yeah. So they're doing these really deep philosophical thoughts to each other over AOL. Yeah.
I mean, I think also it is this very, if I might, early, like, is You've Got Mail the inspiration for Love is Blind?
I've never seen Love is Blind. I'm a snob when it comes to reality TV.
I've seen, so am I, but I have seen, I think during the pandemic, I saw like the first season or something.
We all did things in the pandemic.
It's this whole, like, they're getting to know each other over email
knowing
without seeing each other. And they are falling in love. And like, is that realistic? I don't know.
Do they email on Love is Blind?
They don't, but they talk to each other like on the other side of a wall.
Can they hear each other's voice?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is very telling.
Basically, you can tell what someone looks like by their voice.
I think so.
I wish my voice. No, I like it.
I think you have a great voice.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've sent a voice memo before in the context of like chatting with someone on a sex app, and I've lost I've lost them. But I can't. I mean, if you
I'd be
can't
curious
handle a
what you
nasal
said.
shrill, like you're not
That's
fucking
not
the
for
right
you.
people.
Yeah. So
Right. Oh, look at oh my God, the Big Lebowski playing on the marquee of the IFC. Oh, that's heaven. Is that the IFC?
Really?
Oh, no, that might be AMC Lincoln Square. God, I'm gagged. They do go to AMC Lincoln Square at some point.
I
Upper
don't know how to
West
work
Side
this.
movies that are done well are among the best. Have you seen Margaret with Anna Paquin?
I have not.
Oh, it's everything.
I haven't seen it.
Spoiler alert. Actually, I won't spoil it, but what's her face? Allison Janney has the most insane 10-minute scene.
God, do I love Allison Janney. But there is this moment, there's this like wonderful montage where you see Tom Hanks with his brother who is 4.
Yes.
And it's his dad's son
Modern
from
Family.
his current marriage
and
to
his
this
aunt,
woman.
who is a 7-year-old girl.
Who's a 7-year-old girl. It's his grandfather's daughter. And
It's so confusing.
very confusing.
But it does represent the fact that like families aren't dad, mom, daughter, son. It's like, no, your stepmom is your sister, is your cousin, is your boyfriend.
Yeah, it's just another layer
That's real life.
Did we necessarily need it? I don't know. But I do think that it also introduces these children into his life and gives him a reason to go
show
to
up.
the little bookstore.
But I guess my point with that scene was just the fact that the children's story is about them deciding that she's reading this book to like 30 kids in the store, and it's like very sweet, and she's like very hands-on is what you're supposed to take away. And also it's when Tom and Meg actually meet in real life before she knows he's the conglomerate of the Barnes & Noble, and they're sort of flirting. And the story that she's reading, though, is about like some characters deciding to put a rat
In a
carcass,
jar.
like a bleeding dead mouse, into a candy jar to like get back at someone.
Isn't it a Roald Dahl book?
Could be.
We'll have to go back and check the tapes on that.
It might be The Witches then. The Witches is pretty disturbed and an amazing book, if I recall. And her outfit. Right now she's wearing a gray like dress over a black turtleneck and black tights, and it's just like she makes it work.
For Halloween one year, I had a pumpkin. I had the bag.
Right.
I had daisies.
Of course.
I had a wig that I cut.
Girl.
I wore it to a bar.
Did you?
Where I thought nobody was going to know who I was. And it was like, I don't know if it was like a lesbian party necessarily, but it was like a birthday party of this lesbian I know. But I wore this costume.
Yeah.
And I thought nobody was going to know who I was.
At a lesbian party?
And guess what? Do you know who the audience for this movie is?
Lesbians?
But lesbians, millennial lesbians, because I walked into this bar and it was like people were pointing at me and clapping.
Babbling on.
Can I just tell you, in this scene, when they're exiting the bookstore, Tom Hanks is holding a handful of balloons and a fish from this montage that we've seen before they enter of the kids doing this fall festival thing.
A fish? Oh.
Do you see the fish?
Like a goldfish.
A goldfish in a bag. Yeah, that's right. And when he's leaving the store, he kind of ushers the kids out and he closes the door, and the balloons get stuck in the door.
Oh, really?
And he has to open the door and yank them out with them. And he says, "Good thing it wasn't the fish." And that is an improvised line.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
I know that because I'm a freak.
Little That's heaven.
Anyway.
I want to take us to the next scene.
Please.
I think we need to
Get
move
us
on from
out
this.
of here.
We've been here for a long time. It's not even that important of a scene. The next scene, they're at a party, or at least pretty soon after. They're at this like black tie party that Parker Posey has dragged Tom to, and that Meg Ryan happens to be at as well with Greg Kinnear. And it's this like benefit thing.
They walk past ABC home, so you know they're in like the Union Square
Which went out
area.
of business?
I don't think
Oh, no,
so.
it's still around.
It's still
I'm thinking
around.
of Century 21.
Oh, yeah.
So we get a great Parker Posey moment where she's like talking to someone, and then without even looking at him, she just like flings her empty cup at Tom Hanks and is like implying like, go get me another.
Yeah.
And so they're unhappy. He goes, runs into Meg Ryan, who has just discovered that he's Mr. Fox, the bad guy, at the food bar. And he is so disgusting. And ultimately, I don't ever think bounces back from this evil. He takes all the garnish caviar around the plate and with a spoon scoops all of it for himself. Not only is it disgusting, not only is it selfish, no one else will get to eat the caviar, it ruins the plate. And she's being like, stop it, you evil pig, die. And she's taking her own spoon and taking the caviar back off of his plate and putting it back.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to Ephronian syndrome of like, here we are at Ephron.
Yeah.
Here we are at caviar goes on to plate, caviar comes off of plate.
Right.
These two characters hate each other. Tom Hanks is an evil pig. Meg Ryan is an angelic saint.
Yeah. We also have this line, what are you doing? That caviar is a garnish.
Yeah.
This is like,
would you get that as a lower back tattoo?
I think I would probably feature it more like on my bicep.
She holds a knife.
She's holding a knife, but there's this whole thing where she's like calling him out. She's like, that caviar is a garnish. Like, you can't eat that. You can't take that all for yourself.
I mean, I think it's okay to take one little scoop.
But like, isn't it this metaphor for like, he is big books. He's like taking everything for himself.
It is.
She's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that.
See, this is an interaction that I think defines Nora Ephron as a screenwriter in the fact that this is so small. And like, I think a lot of people trying to write a movie, myself included, probably would be like, this is like not driving the plot along enough, or like, this isn't interesting. Like, this is just like babbling between two people. But this is a great lesson because this is actually so indicative of both characters. And it is a metaphor for the bookstore. And it is just like, it paints such vivid texture to this world.
It does.
And it's funny, and it's also like weird and kind of random.
And it's also like, it sort of sets the stage for how we see Joe Fox misbehaving in the future, where it's like, privately, we've seen him be a good guy. He's with his brother and his aunt, which are these two children, and he's, you know, he's buying them things and having this great day with them, and he has this dog, and he's like, he is a good guy, but publicly, I mean, I don't know if
I think he's a good guy. That's the thing. Okay, we'll get into that.
But what we're seeing here is when prodded with this, you know, this person who is objectively a good person. Yeah. Because I think he has this inner conflict of, am I this like cold Aaron type, or am I like actually good? Yeah. He just decides that it's easier to assume this position of being this bad person, and he's like, I'm going to take all the caviar.
He leans into it.
Wait,
so one of my favorite lines of the movie is coming now, which is, I guess, I forget who asks her, but eventually Greg and Parker join him. We're in a quartet.
The best.
Do you know what I'm about to say?
Of course. But because it's like, talk about intentionality and like dialogue and showing, not telling. The
funniest thing in the world.
You have 4 extremely developed characters, 2 of which you've hardly seen any of, yet you know exactly who they are. Yeah. And so Tom and Meg, or Joe and Kathleen, have had this sort of vitriolic exchange. And Kathleen is holding like a knife that is there to carve a turkey, which is a very, I guess in the 90s we were carving turkeys at cocktail parties. But
I mean, this party I need to go to. They have a full caviar turkey display.
So they had this very heated exchange, and then like almost slapstick in style, Kathleen's partner Frank Navasky and Joe's partner
Parker Posey. No, but so the line that I'm trying to single out here, because we still have a lot to get through, so I'm trying to pick up our pace slightly, no shade, is why am I being a huge bitch? I'm dying. But I need to say that someone asks her, Parker Posey, like, how do you sleep at night? Or asks like Tom. Oh my God. And she goes, I use a wonderful over-the-counter drug, Ultradorm.
It's so good.
It's so
good. Yeah, the partners like duke it out sort of, and then
basically when they get home, Parker and Tom start talking, and she suddenly just like zonks out.
In like just as quickly as she has asked a question, she is snoring.
Anyway, I want to move on to something which is River by Joni Mitchell. So we're getting voiceover of her typing away. And she's also decorating her store for Christmas. And this is when it gets tearjerkery, because she's like, I was thinking about that song, River by Joni Mitchell, and she says that it's come around Christmas, filling up trees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. And then she's saying, I found myself missing my mother so much I almost couldn't breathe while decorating the tree, and I'm needing advice from her and warm cocoa and her to tell me that everything is going to be okay. And God, Meg Ryan and Kathleen Kelly and this whole thing, it's just so heartbreaking and true and reflective of, I don't know, children missing their mothers and grief and wishing for the past and wishing you could talk to someone who's died. And I just really connected with that moment. And I think that to me is what makes this movie special.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have that, I think it wouldn't be at all the same movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would maybe not work as a movie because the Tom, again, beleaguering the point, the Tom Meg romance on its own doesn't provide a movie worth watching.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Anything to say on the River shit?
I have a really funny story about that song.
Okay, let's go.
Like, we can keep this or not, but Benny Polis and I, Christmas 2015 maybe, my mom was in town and my sister.
I love your
went
mom.
out thank you. My mom
And sister.
loves you.
Oh,
my mom loves you.
what was her nickname for me? Champagne. Yeah, I love it.
Is your bubbly?
Or was it Prosecco?
Polis' person.
Looking at me, looking at all.
My mom and sister were in town. We went out to dinner. We were tired. We were a
Where?
little drunk. We went to Patrizia's in Williamsburg,
Don't
in
know
South
it,
Williamsburg.
but love the
It's
name.
a trip.
Let's go.
We should. We came back to my apartment. We fell asleep, and then I woke up at like midnight to a text message from Benny saying, "Do you want to go to karaoke at the Rosemont?"
Holy shit.
And I sat up in the dark, and my mom is like a karaoke scam artist. She's always trying to get us to do it. She has tricked
So
us
is
into
mine.
it before. It's insane.
I mean, my mom isn't scamming, but
My mom
she's
is a
pushing
scam
for
artist.
Carrie.
And I was like, you guys, do you want to go to karaoke? And like out of a deep sleep, they were like, yeah. And so we walked to the Rosemont.
Holy shit.
And
Does
there were,
the
like,
Rosemont still
exist? I don't know.
I mean, back in the day, that was,
It was like
Times
the spot.
Square. Yeah.
And we went, and there was I can't remember the name of the drag queen who was hosting.
Is he uncut?
I don't know. But
Laguna Blue?
all I know is that when she, like people did songs and then she did a song and she sang that song.
River.
She sang River by Joni Mitchell.
Or lip sync?
Lip sync.
Okay.
And it was like,
Was it funny or heartbreaking?
It was heartbreaking and it was beautiful. And it was really quiet because it was like an off night. It was like Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And there were like 15 of us there. And it was beautiful. And we're all sitting there and she's maybe like 10 feet from us. And my mom, and she's wearing this like beautiful like sheer fishnet dress with nothing underneath it.
Well, I could have told you
And
that.
towards the end of the song, my mom is like, has tears in her eyes. And then she looks at me and she goes, "Is that her penis?" And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that was her penis.
Yeah.
You saw it. Queen.
Yeah, Mom. It
Oh,
was.
we're keeping that in.
Okay, and we're moving on.
So moving on, they decide to fight. They decide to fight against Big Corp, and Greg Kinnear says, "Oh no, Tom Hanks over AOL says go to the mattresses."
Right, because all the while they still are emailing their pen pals because they don't know.
They don't know that it's
who
each other,
each
so
other
they're helping
are.
each other out. And so he says go to the mattresses, which is a Godfather reference. And Meg Ryan is like, what is it with men and the Godfather? Which I actually wanted to take it a step further and ask, what is it with men and war and fighting and guns? And gun culture, pacifism above all else.
Right.
And war. That's my main thing.
That's
let's put the wars to bed.
Let's
Peace
put them to the
signs.
mattresses.
Like, if you want to go to a mattress, why don't you lay down?
Why don't we just lay down?
Lay down and lay down your gun as well so we can melt it down into iron to make amulets.
Oh.
Jewels, not... Okay, so So that's my main thing.
Right. And so then we see this whole like
we see this montage where
I
she,
guess it's another
I'm
montage.
telling you, there's more than
Okay, yeah.
There's this montage where they're putting up picket signs, they're doing riots.
Yeah.
She's giving a speech outside the shop.
She's being interviewed.
And she's saying, do you really want to get off at 72nd and Broadway and not even know you're in New York City? Which I thought that was 72nd and Broadway really is, that 72nd Street stop is such an evocative place.
Yeah.
That really is one of the spots in New York City that you're like, I'm in New York. And at this point, the movie has been a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I'm pretty sure it is just like a Trader Joe's, a CVS.
But isn't it so interesting? Like we're in Greenpoint. We're recording from Greenpoint.
We record from Greenpoint today.
But it is so interesting that like the thing about New York that makes it New York for me is all of the small businesses and all of the like every business, restaurant, deli, whatever, bookstore has a face. And it's wild.
Face as in the people who work there, or as in like the storefront
like it's not
and
this
the look.
faceless thing where it's like, it's not like a Barnes Noble who's like, who's
distinct.
Mr. Barnes Noble, you know?
Although if
like,
I'm honest, Barnes & Noble, again, to me reads as like someone with a face that I would turn to in times of needing comfort.
well, I think that there's a difference between like finding comfort in a steady name brand and like a corporation without a face. But all I'm saying is like, it's wild that this is the most expensive place in the country, one of in the world, and yet somehow, and it is still slowly happening, like Greenpoint is being turned into this, you know, corporate armpit as well
like
soon. There's like a Van Leeuwen downstairs.
Well, see, I thought what you were going to say is that New York, the thing about it is it's ever changing.
But it still is a place. And yet, like, even though it's so expensive, that is still its bread and butter. Like it's like restaurants that are, you know, there's one restaurant and a sister restaurant. There's a coffee shop that has maybe 3 of them, but it's not like strip malls and these like town in a box.
I mean,
things.
you can find a strip mall out in like Maspeth, but the point is,
what is the point?
There isn't one, but I would say that New York, I mean, this is an interesting thing that the movie, ultimately the New York is really like advertising New York. Is kind of the first thing about it. Before grief, before love, before business. It's about like New York. And the charisma of New York in the fall and winter. And I think what I would say about New York, like it's unbelievably expensive. It's unlivable. Like I can't afford to be living here, and I really need a job. If anyone's listening and their company's hiring, like I'm willing to try new fields. Like I need a career change. But all that aside, like there still is nowhere like it, and it's ever evolving. You can never be like, oh, I love this New York, because it's not going to stay like that. It never will. And arguably, it's evolving for the worse and becoming more and more anonymous. But still,
and yet,
there's a vein, a beating pulse that can be found, especially in places like, honestly, looking out your window in Greenpoint and seeing these changing leaves, or 72nd and Broadway, stepping through that arch of that specific train stop that has that Corinthian archway, and looking around and thinking, oh, we're not far from Lincoln Center. We're not far from the AMC Lincoln Square, which has those AMC Lincoln Square is one of those spots in New York that remains old days, with like, there's that Pharaoh thing, and there's these crazy different theater, you know what I'm talking about? And they go to that in this movie. And I have, for reasons I won't disclose, a very special connection to that movie theater, and also to that train stop I remember being at with my dad, and he took me grocery shopping the one time he ever did. Not that a parent is required to take a child grocery shopping.
It's nice when they do.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well said.
Holy shit. Just lost the plot for a sec. The next thing I think worth bringing up, unless you had more to say, would be the news lady.
I was going to say, we just can't skip past the news lady.
Let's
because
talk.
This is
Who
delicious.
is she? She's in something else.
I don't know.
Let me look it up while you wax on her.
You look that up, but what Hilton is talking about is Frank has written a piece for The Observer about the shop around the corner, trying to, you know, promote the need for small businesses like this. And it has gotten picked up by this local, like, I don't know, morning news show or something. And he's being interviewed by Sydney Ann. and
Sydney Ann.
Sydney
Okay.
Ann.
Sydney Ann.
And we see the way we consume this interview is through
Jane Addams.
Oh, Jane Addams.
She's in a bunch of stuff. Most recently, I think The Idol is where we would know her from.
Oh, yeah, of course.
She's in Hacks. She's in Hung, which is a show I really need to check
I
out.
haven't read about that show.
I
Father
haven't
of the
seen most
Bride
of
Part
this
2.
stuff. But yeah, she's
another one.
very well respected.
So we see Kathleen and Frank are at Kathleen's apartment, and Frank has taped his own interview, and Sydney Ann is interviewing him, and Frank
coming onto him
quite hard, and he is very accepting and welcoming of it, and he has also clearly watched this tape of his own interview many times.
Which does he end up with her in the end? Spoiler.
Seemingly,
Because I thought he was going to end up with Parker because they hit it off.
No, but it's actually like it's kind of better.
No,
that
same.
It's like
that's
again,
obvious.
Yeah, but
and this movie isn't obvious.
Yeah,
say
I
what
love
you want.
it.
Like it's surprising at the end. You think she will win and she doesn't. I mean, it's depressing in that sense.
But there are like this line, "Thank you," because he is like bumbling and like fumbling over this interview, and because like he's attracted to her and she's attracted to him, this interviewer.
She's being like, I'm sweating.
She's like telling him he's a New York treasure, and Kathleen is sitting there like, oh my God, she's coming on to you. And he like doesn't even really care that he is very obviously attracted to this woman and watching it with his girlfriend. He's more excited about seeing himself on TV, and also just kind of can't hide. Like Kathleen and Frank are just like very close to the end at this point.
Yeah.
And
it's an interesting way that they show the deterioration.
It is.
It never turns ugly. It just turns like we're on different paths.
And have been. Yeah.
And that can happen. Mm-hmm. Of course, it can also turn ugly.
Uh-huh.
You know.
I do.
I'm sure. Well, okay, wait. I wanna breeze into a really important thing.
Uh-huh.
Meg Ryan, who has a very complex role to play here that involves a lot of facial expressions while things are happening to her or while there's voiceover happening, and she's not always getting to deliver her lines verbally. And here, she's getting stood up. So the pen pals agree to meet.
Yes.
And Tom Hanks shows up with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And is like, look, and she's going to be with a book with a flower in it. That's how they'll know.
Yeah, which we have like there's so much here, but there's this whole Pride and Prejudice.
There's a Pride and Prejudice
theme
subplot,
in this movie where Kathleen Kelly loves Pride and Prejudice, which of course, like I was talking to Benny about this earlier, like every rom-com is Pride and Prejudice or Romeo and Juliet. But this movie is very Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet with the
And
Joe
by the
Fox
way, I don't know how Pride and Prejudice ends. I've never read or seen it, so
You should read it.
I should read it and see it.
But she, of course, like Kathleen Kelly loves Pride and Prejudice. And so instead of meeting in a more modern way, because she is such this like old school diehard paperback type, they meet at Cafe Lolo on the Upper West Side, and she is sitting there with a book with a red rose in it, and that is how her pen pal will know it's her.
And so Tom Hanks, this is so disgusting. He's evil here, but he's like, check if she's hot or not. And so Dave Chappelle goes up and looks and sees it's her. And then Hanks leaves because he's like, I'm not going to date her. And she...
Right, because he's like, it's your nemesis.
Right. And he ultimately will come back and be a bitch to her. And I don't really think it's needed to linger on that. But I think what's important here is her facial expression as she's realizing she's getting stood up and she's adjusting the book. There's such a pain in her eyes that she's trying to mask with a smile. And I have been stood up, I guess. I'm trying to think if I've been properly stood up. I've been like semi-stood up. Maybe not in the classic sense of like you're waiting in a bar for somebody, but like I've been canceled on like as I'm in route type thing and ghosted.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just that rawness of her face. Like I think Meg Ryan gets pigeonholed as this like cutesy rom-com girl when actually there's some serious dramatic tapping into some deep pain going on.
Depth, for sure.
She's deep.
And I think this is also the moment where you sort of see that like it's that loss of innocence a little bit, because up until that point, she's really fantasized about this person and put them on this pedestal, and there's no way they could be anything but perfect.
Yeah.
And you see it wash over
men
her.
are scum as usual.
But I think this is also a part of like a humanizing part of this movie where you realize, because what's about to ensue is like chaos. It is just unhinged. It doesn't make any sense, but again, we're just going to go with it.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that this person that she has fallen in love with and idealized is also extremely flawed, and yet, spoiler,
and yet
they end up
together after many back
after
and
all
forths.
this.
But so she's back at the bookstore and she's debriefing about how he didn't show up, and she's like, well, he maybe. And they're all like, oh, you got stood up. And then her and Christina are hypothesizing like, well, maybe he is in a coma, or maybe he
fell on the train tracks,
incinerated, or fell on the train tracks. And it's super funny. And they're all just, and this is, by the way, how life goes.
100%.
Like, as you get stood up. Here's a typical day, for example, for anyone who doesn't live in New York and maybe doesn't know how life works. It's like you wake up, you email someone, you make plans with a book and a rose, you get stood up. You go to your job at the bookstore the next day and you think he might be getting chopped up by a serial killer. He might be incinerated. He might have fallen on the train. He might be in a coma. There might be the beeping of the heart monitor. And then Steve Zahn might suggest he might be the serial killer that just got arrested.
Right.
And in that, you find your community. And that's really more joyful than going on a date in the first place. And that they're all down to have this affair indicates how close they are. They're all like supporting the affair.
Totally. There's like a moment there where they remind her, remember when you thought Frank was the rooftop killer? Like something's going on with her current boyfriend at some other previous point. And they're
who's
like,
Frank
is Greg Kinnear.
Oh, and
she's like, or they're like, oh no, they thought Frank used to be the Unabomber. And it's like, it's just so...
What? By the way, what's the Unabomber, ultimately?
A bomber. It's like something...
bones?
I think if we were like a little older...
We would get it.
We would
But we're too young.
exactly. We're just babies.
Someone today... Oh, at the gym, that when I signed up, I had to say that I was born in 93. I'll babble that out. And they went, you look so much younger than that. And it really clicked this morning, like... Oh,
people
fuck.
think,
like, if people knew that I was 30, Babel, like, to most people, that's old as fuck.
I mean, if you're saying most people, then I think you just need to meet some older people.
I think that I might have too many younglings in my life.
Yeah. Also, though, like, talk about ageism in this movie, of which there is none. Because, like, Gene Stapleton and Meg Ryan are very good friends, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, this movie isn't ageist. Say what you want.
And like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in this movie are well into their 30s. And I think there's something to be said for like, in the late 90s, that was kind of old.
30s still be young.
It is. But I'm saying like in 1990.
When does youth end? I was recently proposed that 40 is the end of youth.
I feel like
I'd like to say 50.
I don't know.
I
think I just don't know.
I don't know. I think it depends.
I think that if you
genetics.
think you know the answer to that, you're still young.
If you think you do know the answer.
Yeah. Like, I think that's like, we're very young for thinking that
we're young. And by the way, like a thought just glimmered through my head and then passed that would have like solved everything. That was about like, I guess it's like we're always young and old and time isn't linear. I guess I was trying to pull that card. The time card. I was trying to punch my time card.
So.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
Can we do some really big things now?
Yes, please. Because honestly, the rest of this is like, throw it away. I actually don't care about it.
Okay, cool. So now I'm going to guide us to the important things to tap in, and then I'm going to get your insights.
Yes, please.
The next really important thing is, I mean, at some point they go to the AMC Lincoln Square, which we've already covered as one of the institutions of New York City.
Right.
And also is home to the best IMAX in New York City.
Right. They break up.
They break up. So that's what I want to talk about. So they go to a cafe and they like break up in this really shocking
Kathleen.
Frank and Kathleen, in a way where basically they're talking and he's like, I think you're so great. And she kind of realizes what's happening. She's like, you don't love me. You don't love me. And he's like, no. And she's like, I don't love you either.
Yeah, she actually says me either.
Me either.
Which is a little, it kind of drives me crazy because she's a book type and the proper grammar would be me neither.
Yeah.
Like I find it a little hard to believe that
bothers me.
Kathleen would say me either. But we'll allow it. I do think that this is actually a moment where it is a very romanticized breakup because it's like, I don't believe it. Even though
I was expecting her to be upset, and I think the whole intention of the scene is to flip that on its head. And
I get it.
Even so, it's like, I mean, I've been in. I need to stop harping on this.
I don't care about the relationship between the two of them enough to really say more, but I do think that I believe that no matter what, like even if you're not in love with somebody, you have spent an amount of time with a person, and you're going to be like a little bit more upset than the two of them like cheersing with this like, you know, a glass of red wine to it.
You've been dating for a long time.
I do think that the two of them are both independently in love with someone else. For Frank, he's really obsessed with this Sydney Ann.
And then he's like, is there someone else for you? And she goes, no, but there's the dream of someone else.
Which I'm also like, if that was me, I would be like, okay, rude.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so you're dreaming that there must be something better than this hell.
Yeah. But I think I think like the way you're able to believe it is that they both have been checked out for a long time, and they're like, they're not only ready to move on, they've both moved on. Like they already have different love interests, and so this is kind of a relief for both of them to be out of it.
There is some funny shit coming up. So basically she loses. The store closes. Which is shocking, and as we've kind of beleaguered the point, like pretty crazy that this whole setup of the movie, the stakes are she's like trying to save her little bookstore, and in the end she just loses it.
She just doesn't.
Which is like so weird.
But that's life.
But then it closes. Chris Messina, it should be noted, sexy Chris Messina is a bookstore worker at
Fox Books.
At Fox Books.
And also I love that this is a real book they're talking about. Do you know these books? The shoe books?
No, I don't know them, but she's like crying as she recommends ballet shoes. But.
Yeah. Meg Ryan has like tearfully made her way to the Fox Books for the first time, and she's sort of like taking in this empire that they've created, and she finds herself naturally gravitating towards the children's book section. Yeah. Upon which we see a young Chris Messina, and she overhears a customer asking him where to find this book, and so we actually see Kathleen overhearing this interaction with the customers, but Joe Fox is overhearing this whole chain of events from even further away, in which he witnesses his employee completely
we get a double over here.
Botch the spelling, and Kathleen is, of course, the charming, wonderful angel that she is, who knows everything because she's the best. And that's the only time he's in it.
Yeah, that's Chris Messina's only thing.
He's out.
He's so sexy. Holy shit. I already told you Benny suggested that every song in the soundtrack has the word dream in the title, which we've debunked. Yeah. But important to note that that was
important considered. To note that that was thought of.
Okay, so then we get to this elevator scene. There's a beautiful elevator.
Iconic.
With before I saw the scene, I was like, wow, what a beautiful elevator. What beautiful shadows of light are being cast upon it. Tom Hanks, Parker Posey, this old woman who, I forget who she is, but she's in some other stuff. Maybe Sex and the City. And the elevator operator are in this elevator, which gets stuck.
And the elevator operator is also...
who is the woman in the elevator?
I'll find her, but the elevator operator is Michael Badalucco. And he's been in a lot too. Like...
This elevator is a star-studded.
It is this
Who
guy.
is the woman in the... I don't recognize him, though. What is he in?
I know he was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Who is the woman
He plays like George.
Oh, I've never seen No Brother.
Oh, God. Oh, my God, it's so good.
Who is the woman in the elevator? And it's based on the Odyssey, which I'm obsessed with. Who is the woman in the elevator in... You've Got Mail. What was the other thing I was going to bring up, actually? Deborah Rush. Now, who is Deborah Rush? because I know I recognize her
Isn't
from
Deborah
something.
Rush?
She's like legendary. I know I'm gonna get
She was
spat on.
in.
Deborah Rush. Ugh, it just accidentally did AI. Like, don't do that to me. Debbie. I had something to say about the screenplay that I'm working on in relation to this one,
Was she in Julia and Julia,
but I forgot.
which is also a Nora
Isn't that
Ephron film?
interesting? Oh, I've seen Julie and Julia.
She was. So Nora must love her.
What thing am I thinking of that she's in?
The Good Girl?
No.
Strangers with Candy.
No.
I don't know that.
None of these are it.
Was it TV?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, well.
She was in Girls.
Oh, wait, who was she in Girls?
I don't know.
That must be what I'm thinking.
Thomas John's mother. She was only in one episode.
Oh, she's Thomas John's mother. Oh, that is, I think, who I'm thinking of. Okay.
Okay, anyway.
So whatever, doesn't matter. The important point is this is basically where him and Parker break up, but the elevator gets stuck and they're stuck sitting in there. And they all go around and say, like, if I ever get out of this elevator, and Deborah Rush is like, I'm going to call my mom more. And the elevator guy is like, I'm going to marry my girlfriend. And then I forget what Tom says, but
he gets cut off.
Oh, he gets cut off.
He's about to wax his poetic.
Do you think any of this was improvised, or she just got the best
also,
lines?
like, Parker Posey also, she gets to say her thing. She says, if I ever get out of here, I'm getting my eyes lasered.
And then she goes,
and then Tom Hanks is about to say his, and then,
where are my Tic Tacs? Which, by the way, I once had a Venus flytrap, and
oh my God,
I couldn't
really?
catch any bugs. I don't know what people do to feed it. Like, I couldn't catch any bugs, and so I fed it an orange Tic Tac and named it Tic Tac, and then it oozed orange liquid and died.
that is insane.
Yeah.
That's wild. I wanted to be a Venus flytrap for Halloween when I was like 6.
How would you pull that off?
I don't know, but my mom said no, so we never found out.
Venus flytraps, like, bridge the gap between the plants and animal world in this crazy way. Like, you're telling me you're a plant that eats animals?
Yeah,
like,
and Tic Tacs.
maybe all these distinctions we've made between plant, animal,
They're
shelf,
just like us.
human, rock, like, maybe there are no borders. And that's why I'm promoting Doctors Without Borders.
I thought this was another Kamala
Why don't
thing.
they show the breakup?
I don't know, but I do love like that the scene, because this is talk about like acting without words. Like, you see Tom Hanks all of a sudden, he's this moment when she says, where are my Tic Tacs? And he sort of like cocks his head to the side, and he's like realizing like, what am I doing? And she looks at him and she goes, what?
Okay, but one thing I hate is I'm realizing, like, oh, like, if I get out of this, I'm having my eyes later, where are my Tic Tacs? What is like, oh, that's literally how I talk. And they're painting her to be like a vapid villain. And I'm like, and Tom Hanks doesn't want to be with her. I'm realizing, like, oh, like, so Tom Hanks wouldn't want to be with me.
And is that okay?
Well, who does want to be with Parker? Like, I need it to be Channing Tatum.
We don't. It's somebody who is able to draw the softer side of Parker.
I want it to be Adrian Brody.
Okay. I think I
Or
can
Daniel
see that.
Craig.
It's somebody who's like, ugh, babe. She's
I need someone who thinks it's
that's
funny
my woman.
how
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
where are my
endearing.
Tic Tacs?
Yeah. Not somebody who's going to judge you for that.
No. I need someone who knows that, like, underneath that vapid exterior is a really complicated, rich interior life that may be getting dampened by certain phone addictions keeping me away from my other pursuits. But once I can conquer that, like, we're good. Okay, so
they break up.
They
Tom
break up.
Hanks moves onto his boat, as one does.
yeah, that didn't quite click in. Like, he lives on a boat now.
We do see him in the
gorgeous.
very beginning, and we know he has a boat. Because he is wealthy. And so he moves out and he moves onto this boat. And it's not much
Why does he move out? Because she gets the apartment?
Because...
And she hires...
I think it's her apartment. I mean, I guess they live together, but...
She hires...
he's I think this is a way that he's trying...
Meg.
They're trying to be like this... He's like an okay guy kind of thing.
Because he gives her the apartment.
Yeah, or also maybe it's like...
right?
It just is like they just need him to be somewhere else. Don't.
I
look
mean,
too
it's a
much into it.
beautiful. The boat interior is a beautiful thing to look at on film.
Yeah, I mean, and you
wonder
don't
if they shot
see
this
it
on film.
like much, but it's just like you're like, all right, he lives on a boat now. Sure.
Well, they both. Okay, so I want to say that Parker hires
Or it's like
Meg
implied,
Ryan
right?
to close that loop,
Oh yeah.
which is cool. So Meg does still get to do some book editing for her job, and then Kathleen Kelly is closing out of her bookstore for the last time.
Yeah.
It's empty. I must say the bookstore looks way better empty. And then she twirls around and dances, and we get the full circle of twirling with Mom.
I hate this moment.
Oh,
though.
really? I was going to say I loved it.
I just feel like, again, like because of the butterfly CGI thing,
Yeah.
I'm just like, it feels very like Hallmark movie to me. Like it's just, it doesn't work for me.
But to me, I think this movie is Hallmark elevated.
yeah,
You know?
I guess. I'm always just like, take me, sail like very quickly past this moment. But former cheese shop, which we haven't really addressed, but this,
Pardon me?
this interior of this bookstore, like her apartment was built, his apartment was built, the bookstore was built. The actual bookstore exterior is in Chelsea, and this actual interior of the bookstore is a real place. It was a cheese shop
You're kidding
formerly.
me.
And so when you see it empty, like I think it actually was a cheese shop when they shot the
Holy
movie
shit.
and they took it over.
Wait, and did you say Fox Books was built?
The interior was built.
Because I was going to ask if they filmed it at the Guggenheim.
The exterior is still like under scaffolding, like 20 years later.
Are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, it's
Welcome to
crazy.
New York.
Barnes & Noble wouldn't let them film in there. Shocker.
Good, because Barnes & Noble is a mom and pop shop. Wait, but it
That's
does
like
look
my
like the
key
Guggenheim. That's my thesis. But did you notice it had the spiral stair of the Guggenheim?
I didn't, but I mean,
Are we going to goog on the boog?
I do love the Guggenheim.
Poog. Here's what I want to say.
Yeah, what is it?
So Tom Hanks is talking about how business isn't personal or something. And it's business, it's not personal. And she goes, all that means is it wasn't personal to you, but it was personal to me. Whatever else anything is, it ought to begin by being personal.
Right. It ought to begin by being personal.
And I think, like, can we unpack that for a sec?
Yeah.
It was personal to me, even if it wasn't personal to you. And whatever anything else should be, it should at least be personal. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's do away with anonymity and let's lean into like actions have consequences. And if someone wrongs you, you're allowed to be upset by it, even if they don't see it as wronging you. Like, you're entitled to your feelings. Do you get where I'm going with this?
I do.
Basically, if someone ghosts you, you're allowed to be mad.
Yeah. I mean, I also think in this moment,
It was personal.
up until now, there's a lot of like Kathleen is really seeking outside advice a lot. Like she goes to Bertie, who is the little shop accountant who knew her mother, who's been around forever. She's wise, she's older. She asks her for advice. She asks Frank for advice and for help, and he writes this column for her. And she asks her NY152, her pen pal guy, like, what's your business advice?
Yeah.
And she's like seeking this help from outside a lot. And
She doesn't really think for herself. She's, I hate to say this, she's kind of dumb.
okay. Oh, all right.
Well, I have written down she's stupid and he's insane,
Okay.
which is harsh. And she's not dumb. She's intelligent, but she's deluded.
I think that
She's full of delusion
Well,
to
I
think
think
that the bookstore could have possibly stayed up. Maybe she's blinded by her grief.
I think that
Maybe she's not stupid. I take it back. She's not dumb. She's not dumb.
But I was just going to say this is the first time really that we see her like putting her foot down. We see it like inkling and we see it starting to happen as she's starting to be a little bit more forceful with the whole Joe Fox thing out in the open. But once he approaches her in her apartment and decides to extend this olive branch,
Which is insane, by the way. She's sick in bed and he lets
just
himself
barges
in and
himself
sits
in.
down on her bed and like brushes her hair.
Yeah. But when she says that line to
Rapist.
him about it's personal to me.
Yeah.
This is her really just like she has experienced a death, which is the death of her store.
Which
her
is
store,
basically
her life,
her mom dying all over again.
It's representative
that.
of so many things. And on the other side of it, she kind of has found who she is. And she is...
And who she is a person who lost her business.
And right, she lost her business, but she also has her own convictions, and she's now writing, and she's...
Oh yeah, she did start to write, didn't she?
Yeah.
But it's just interesting how all of this resolution and their whole love story basically is packed into the last like 12 minutes.
Exactly. Which is which I love, because there's so much about it that is very like unbelievable how she could possibly accept him romantically after all of this. So
because basically, long story short, they end up meeting in Central Park, and it's revealed that he's been the pen pal the whole time.
Well, and also like in between, like in the last like 20-30 minutes before they meet, he now is like has befriended her.
Yeah.
The store's closed. He's befriended her, and now he's just catfishing her on a loop.
Yeah, he's like, being crazy. He's
being
insane.
Insane.
He's like a sociopath.
It's wild. But if you like, for the sake of trying to justify it, if you do say like, okay, well, he knows that he has made himself in real life out to be this deplorable person. So he needs to also now by design, like win her over and make her fall in love with him.
Yeah.
And
well, he has to play his cards
knows
very delicately if he's going to make it work. Like, he can't reveal too soon or too late. I mean, he takes a long time to reveal.
It's insane.
Which is crazy.
It is truly sociopathic behavior.
But it somehow does work. Like, I don't leave this movie thinking, like, this is wrong. I leave it thinking, like, oh, like, yay.
Yeah, and I think it's because in the end, when there's this reveal, just before the reveal, Joe Fox outs himself not as the pen pal, but as being in love with her.
Yeah, they're on the sidewalk, and he's like, I sometimes wonder if you hadn't been business enemies,
right?
Maybe it could have been us.
Right.
God, can you imagine someone saying that?
His line is something like... his line is something like, you know, I would have asked you to dinner or coffee or a movie for as long as we both shall live.
Oh my God.
God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so when we finally, like moments later, when they meet in Riverside Park, and we come to know that Joe Fox is NY152 and she is Shop Girl, which, can I just say, like, this doesn't really matter at this point.
I know what you're gonna say.
I do love, like, just in a detail of Joe Fox's email handle is NY152 and Kathleen's is Shop Girl, which is like, she is Shop Girl. Like, for her entire life, that's who she is.
Yeah.
And Joe Fox is not, you know, Fox Books at whatever, like Joe at whatever. He's like, I don't know, you know, my address, who cares, next.
Again, we see the Ephronian attention to detail. But one thing is, like, if she's Shop Girl, everyone knows what I'm going to say. Like, wouldn't they have figured it out earlier?
Well,
or do you think they did and they didn't, like, I mean,
he figures it out pretty early on.
Yeah, but her, I guess, is what I mean.
Well, but she knows her email address.
Wait, what?
What are you talking about?
Wouldn't she have figured out it was him?
No, because she doesn't know where he lives. His email address is NY152, and he lives at 152 Riverside Drive.
Oh, wait, I just confused.
Yeah, you're feeling confused.
I just got a little bit
lightheaded,
dumbstruck.
But you're right. I mean, I think he would have figured it out, but he does. He does.
Figure it out.
Figured it out.
Right.
Figures
so
it out
my
immediately.
plot point is moot. Moot point.
Yeah.
I had another thought. Damn, my brain fell off. Ephron.
Okay. I think.
Yeah. So they end up together. All my life's changing every day.
And we hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow is playing, which I will also say, like, the dog is just absolutely jumping up on her, this big yellow lab, and they're just like kissing. And it's a moment where I'm just like, I hate dogs.
We need to do a dogs episode. Like,
I don't hate dogs, by the way.
I don't hate dogs, but
by the way,
I don't like when people have dogs in New York.
I am very, I mean, I think there's like a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I think just most people do it the wrong way.
You have to
and
be
they
rich.
give everybody else a bad name.
You give them a bad name.
So that's what I think.
Okay, so that is You've Got Mail.
And
Grouch. Can I just ask, Ephron wise?
Yeah.
Do you have rankings?
of her films.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be like
You don't have to do all of them.
all encompassing because I haven't seen all of them.
Yeah. But top 3, maybe least favorite also?
I would say, well, so do you remember Michael?
Michael?
We talked about this, right? It's John Travolta and he's an angel.
No.
Oh my God.
It's
It's
not
actually
ringing a bell.
You've Got Mail, which is pretty insane.
Scratch that last. I can say I didn't like Julie and Julia.
I didn't love it either.
I liked
Is
When
what I
Harry
can
Met
say.
Sally.
I mean, right.
My sister's favorite movie is It's Complicated. That's with Meryl and Steve Martin.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen Sleepless in Seattle.
It's okay. People love it, though.
Wait, did she do Parent Trap?
No.
Are you sure?
What's this? Oh,
This Is My Life.
yeah. I want to see that.
Weird. Let's watch
That's
it.
the stand-up one.
What about?
I think. Do you know this line? This
Who
is like
wrote Parent Trap?
This is a famous Nora Ephron line, and I don't know what it's from. I don't know when she said it. But I don't have any tattoos. But if I did, this would be like.
I was
This would
thinking
be it.
Nancy Myers.
Oh,
My bad.
also a great.
I think I'm a Nance for the pants. Yeah.
Nora Ephron has this line.
Oh, that It's Complicated is also Nancy Myers.
That's what I
My
thought.
bad. Yeah. Okay. My bad.
Nora Ephron once said, "Everything is copy."
Everything is copy.
Oh,
She said everything
punctuated
is
by the
copy. What
horn.
did she mean by that?
She meant that, like, Nora Ephron was a believer that if you draw from your own life in your writing, it doesn't mean that you're writing nonfiction necessarily. Like, she believes that you are everything is copy means like everything
is
that happens
fiction.
around you is
Fodder, material.
Material, yeah. Like,
So she means copy as in words, not as in like copying something. Okay.
no. But I think as a writer, that's a very
I think that's really good.
and I think like
Because
her
the line between fiction and nonfiction basically died in 1987.
and I think that you don't have like I don't think there's anything more commendable about completely fabricating a world and like a language and a universe and making up every single set of circumstances, and that is the only way that you can
that's not
craft
greater
fiction.
than
Seeing,
I actually think it's a lot harder to craft a world in the existing world.
Yeah.
As someone who's tried to do both.
right.
I think it's way easier to just invent. And it's a lot harder to take things that are present in your real life and incorporate them into a story,
Yeah.
which is what I'm trying to do, which is basically next to impossible. But I guess some people pull it off. So we'll see. Anyway, who are you in this movie? If we were to make the 8 into this movie, who are you? I know who I am.
I know who I am.
Well, actually, okay, I know who I am.
I mean,
Who are you?
I know who I am, and I like have also been told I look like her.
Meg?
No, Heather Burns.
Oh, I actually see it.
Like that's actually when people say this is who you look like. Do people tell you this all the time?
Keira Knightley.
It's always
Right?
for you. Yeah. I always get Heather Burns and Lily Sobieski, and
the
sometimes Jodie Foster.
Who's Lily Sobey?
You
So
know
you
her.
should have
She was
been
in
fans of William.
Glasshouse,
Haven't seen it.
and she was in Never Been Kissed.
No, I haven't seen it.
What?
I know.
That's a good one.
I know. I think I've
Slash
seen
not,
part of
but
it.
it's
Oh,
good. It's
it's
good.
not?
It is.
I don't recognize her.
You don't?
She's not the lesbian in 30 Rock, is she?
Mm. But,
see,
you know.
I see Heather Burns for sure.
Yeah. So that's who I am in this movie, though, for sure, I think.
I I'm Parker.
100%.
I'm Parky.
I mean, of
I'm
course
parking
you
my
are.
car and going to the grocery store. Yay!
Yay!
Okay, wait. What else? Closing remarks, Queen? Dead men tell no tales.
I don't know.
Okay, what I would say in a closing statement, let's pretend we're at the jury, like it's a court case.
Okay.
In closing, my client, I think what sticks with me of this movie is lifting up like the minutia of conversation, i.e. going back to the caviar thing, for example, or just, oh shit, I forgot to say my favorite line, which is, where did it go? Oh, fuck. Where did I
What's
write
your
it?
favorite line?
Oh, they're talking, she's emailing him.
Yeah.
And she says, and because they're basically just making small talk, a lot of it. They're just like, oh, New York school supplies. And she's like, maybe this was all nothing, but all this nothing has meant more to me than so many somethings.
Yes.
And so that to me is the ultimate core of the film, is it's like idle chatter and musings on the leaves changing and talking about the weather and just kind of chatting and being, you know, existing can be so much more potent than a great star-crossed in, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I can't quite put it into words, because obviously star-crossed love is heaven on earth. But it's something about minutia being as important as grand epic stakes, because ultimately the grand epic stakes of this movie, if that's the bookstore, kind of fall flat on their face and she just loses. And so I think really what this movie is about is like, I guess the little things.
Yeah.
And also grief.
I think that's like a very well zeroed in on line and detail of what I think is so great about this movie.
Yeah.
I think
It's the details.
It's the details.
Which makes it the epitome of Ephronianism.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's the little things. Like, there never, in my opinion, never has there been a movie that communicates that and executes it more clearly than this one. And it's not about, you know, it's not about being contrived and like having these really elaborate falsehoods that you invent and then weave throughout the entire film. It's just about, like, there's a florist in the movie, and in the beginning you see like you in very quick passing you see that there's a baby shower happening, and then like 6 months later, I guess, in the movie, she walks past this florist again, and there's like a sign in the window that says it's a girl.
Oh.
And it's like, you never would.
The way
you have to watch the movie 200 times to be looking for. But this is a film that you can watch that many times because there is so much to see, and that is the gift of Nora Ephron, is giving you so much, not only to think about and to watch, but also just to look at and for. I think that
it's an art director's delight.
It's not just the but yeah, no, totally. But I think this movie is,
I think you could have art directed this movie.
I don't think so. I wouldn't have touched it because
your tea.
No. I think this is like the production designer of this film, I forget his name, but I have looked him up before. But like, this is what these movies deserve, what something like this deserves, is somebody who like loves art direction and wants to tell. Dan Davis.
His name was Dan Davis.
Who tells a story through design. And it's not me. But I think,
well, your Emmy noms would say differently.
Oh, God. Can I just say, too, though,
and
like...
my gushing blood a skull would argue otherwise. Yeah, say it.
So much of this movie is also just about, like, is a little ahead of its time, I would say, in terms of women and independence, and like being this single woman who's this bookstore owner, and Parker Posey is this mogul, and
Parker Posey.
Jean Stapleton, like there's this whole thing about how her character dated an Italian fascist dictator, and it's just like, I don't even know where we're going with this. Oh, Spanish it was.
Not to be a bitch.
Anyway,
I'm telling you,
it's my favorite movie.
Aww.
And I hope now you know why.
I actually feel like I do. I feel like I learned a lot. I love you, bitch.
I love you,
I'm so glad Benny introduced us.
Me too.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Benny.
You bitch. Bop, 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 bop. Bop, 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 bop. I guess I could end it, but I just don't feel like ending it.
Okay.
Like, how'd you become an art director?
Oh my God. An accident.
I'm gonna talk about all the things that I wanna talk about. We'll just keep talking. We'll just keep talking. Just keep talking. Talking. For so long. We're babbling on.
The theme song is by Benny Porceletta, featuring Tommy Baker, and it's produced by Benny Porceletta and Jack Krause. The artwork is by Hudson Preston. Audio consultation from Kinsey Woodrow and Dallas Seeker. Special thanks to Alec Cohen, Natalie Rotter-Waitman, Molly Montgomery, Nick Krause, and to everyone who has subscribed to Babbling On the Substack and refused to shut the fuck up.